Hello and welcome to the Wrestle News 365 YouTube account. This is our very first video on the platform today, so thank you very much for tuning in. Quickly from the top, thank you to everyone that's followed us on our social media platforms since we started, and actually in the middle of July, I believe. Ever since then, it's been an absolute whirlwind ride. So many people following us, so many people retweeting us, interacting with some of the performers themselves in both WWE, AEW, NWA, Impact, everywhere. So it's just been phenomenal, and it's all been leading to this. It's all been leading to today, leading to our debut on YouTube. And we had a bit of a discussion between ourselves. We thought, what better way to start on YouTube than with a nice Sunday watch along? So today actually marks 17 years since WWE Survivor Series 2002, which ironically for myself is actually one of my favourite Survivor Series of all time. So what better way to start off on YouTube than do a watch along with you guys, and today we're going to watch Survivor Series 2002. Now before we get started, just to give a little background, Survivor Series 2002 emanated from the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden in New York City. The event drew 17,930 fans, and a little interesting fact, I did not know this until I was doing my research yesterday for the video, that this was the second Survivor Series event ever not to include any Survivor Series elimination matches. The first, can you guess? Give you a couple of seconds to guess. The first was 1998, during the start of the Attitude Era. Now that really did interest me, considering the name of Survivor Series implies the traditional Survivor Series elimination tag team matches. It's interesting how they did a pay-per-view without the Survivor Series element in Survivor Series, if that makes sense. But it didn't stop it at all. This was a great event. It's one of my favourite Survivor Series ever, like I said. So, that being said, if you want to watch along with us, fire up the WWE Network if you don't have it already. Go and subscribe, get a month for free. You can watch this year's Survivor Series. It sounds like a plug. They don't sponsor us at all, but yeah, there you go. It helps with the watch along today. Go to WWE Pay-Per-Views, 2019 Pay-Per-Views, click Survivor Series, and then find Survivor Series 2002. What we'll do, we'll provide a 5-second countdown, and then when I say play, click play, and the watch along will begin then. What we'll also do throughout the video, we'll provide you with an update on what our uploading schedule will be on YouTube during the watch along, so make sure you're listening out for that. Just to give like a little outline of it already, we're going to aim because you never know with these things, to be uploading a video on YouTube every day of the week, whether that's reviews for Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Dynamite, whatever programs going, pay-per-views, obviously, predictions, reviews, everything. And then we'll be doing some original series as well. But we'll get into that into the video, so let's get ready with the watch along. Okay, hopefully everyone is ready, so let's do the countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. And we're opening up with a little recap of Brock Lesnar at No Mercy. He actually had an amazing Hell in a Cell match against The Undertaker in October in No Mercy in 2002. They're just sort of highlighting his upcoming match with Big Show at the event. But if you think of that match he had with The Undertaker at No Mercy 2002, I mean, to me it's maddening when you think about the 2002 that Brock Lesnar had. I mean, he debuts just after the night after Wrestlemania 18, and he's only in WWE for what, like 2 years? Just over 2 years. He goes 2004 after WrestleMania 20, and he debuts after WrestleMania, destroys, was it Maven, Spike Dudley, Al Snow in a hardcore match, wins the King of the Ring, defeats The Rock. I mean, The Rock, a huge megastar even then, at SummerSlam for the WWE Championship, youngest WWE champion of all time, becomes exclusive to SmackDown. And then goes on to have these great matches with The Undertaker. Next year wins the Royal Rumble, has the great feud with Kurt Angle throughout 2003, and then he's gone. Pretty much at the start of 2004. It's absolutely mad. And I remember hearing interviews with people like Jim Cornette when they were saying that he was good in OVW, but once he got to the main roster, I think that sort of athlete style NCAA sort of attitude kicks in, and he just becomes a megastar. And it's just, whenever I look back at this sort of short run he has between 2002 and 2004, it's crazy to think that the run he's had now with WWE, obviously less in terms of schedule because he's hardly ever there, for he's only there for very specific TVs and on very specific big pay-per-views. But it's just, it's crazy to think how much he did in that initial 2 year spell. He really is. I mean, people obviously, are going to criticize him for sometimes his attitude and if and when he decides to turn up, but just, he really is a once in a lifetime kind of athlete for the stuff he did outside WWE, and what he does inside it, it's crazy. So obviously we're just going into the Open Survivor Series now. Lots of pyro. Great song by Saliva. I love the song always. Saliva did so many great pay songs. Think of Wrestlemania 18, Superstar, great song. Always, obviously, for Survivor Series. Loads of great songs by Survivor. And they show there the Elimination Chamber. Obviously, we'll talk about that later on. But I remember going into this thinking just like what to expect. Because they said Elimination Chamber. Eric Bischoff came out on Raw and said it could be Chain and 6 people are going to be in it, but no one really knew. And you just look at it now, compared to what it is now. Now it's almost like the PG Elimination Chamber, isn't it? They've got the mats on the outside. It's smaller and just, yeah, it's not what it was originally. I mean, I understand it because some of the bumps, like the way the cage goes around the ring on the apron, some of those bumps, I mean, there isn't any way to protect yourself. It's just steel, like rock hard steel as well. So I understand why they changed it, but part of you likes that part of it. That it's brutal. So in the ring now, obviously you see Spike Dudley, Bub Dudley, Jeff Hardy. Isn't that pop? That is. Oh, there's a sign there that says, "I want to party with Jeff Hardy." I even back then, especially today, I wouldn't recommend it, but now, back then I wouldn't recommend that. But I don't think Jeff Hardy's probably had enough partying. Wouldn't you say so far? And this is what I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. How many more matches Jeff Hardy has in WWE at this point in 2002? He's gone in. Is it 2003? He's gone. This is his sort of first singles run, isn't it, in WWE, when he comes out with that like neon paint, which was quite cool. But then it would just be on him for the rest of the match, and it used to be the same thing with like with Goldust or anyone that would have like body paint on, that it rubs off on their opponent after halfway through the match, and it just, I don't know, it just looked a bit odd to me. Now you see 3-minute warning coming out. Rico, Jamal, and Rosie. Now 3-minute warning. This might be a little bit controversial, but I really, really liked the trio 3-minute warning. It was massive on Rico. I always found him to be a bit odd, especially when you go from, talk about a gimmick change. You go from being the stylist of Billy and Chuck to being the manager of these two absolute ginormous hitters in Jamal and Rosie and 3-minute warning. But I really liked them. On the network, I don't think they have the original 3-minute warning entrance. That's just par for the course, isn't it, with the WWE network, I guess. But the entrance music was great. And at the time, I don't think I'd actually seen like two big guys that were that athletic. I mean, Jamal and Rosie were what, like 350, 400 pounds each? They're doing splashes off the top rope. They just did a replay a second ago of them doing a splash through the table. I mean, that's crazy. And they did this move. I don't know if they'll do it in this match. I can't remember off the top of my head. But where Rosie would pick up his opponent for a gorilla press and throw him. And then Jamal would catch him into a Samoa drop. And it was just brutal. And 3-minute warning has some great segments as well. I mean, you think of when they attacked the fabulous Moolah and Mae Young. People will say, the controversial stuff about the attacking Moolah and Mae Young. But what confused me with those sort of arguments is that people will criticize them on one side and say, it's male on female violence, which I totally get. Intergender matches, I'm sort of, I think, on the line of everyone else. It's they are an attraction, but it depends what you see. But those Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young segments where they would get attacked, I mean, they were like in their 80s at least, right? 70s or 80s, something like that. And yeah, and everyone still talks, obviously, and he's in this match about Bubba Ray powerbombing Mae Young off the stage through the table. Yeah, I thought they were great. They were fun. They were awesome. So yeah, I like these segments. I like 3 Minute Warning. I thought it was great. Little bit of background about 3 Minute Warning as well. When I was doing my research for the video, obviously they broke up in 2003. I did not know that they were broke up in 2003 when Jamal, who would later go on to become Umaga, was released reportedly due to his involvement in a bar fight. I don't know if anyone knows anything more about that. If anyone wants to put in the comments below any more information they have about that. I didn't know it was due to a bar fight. Obviously, like I said, he would later return as Umaga for a great run. I mean, Umaga's great. He's definitely a WWE Hall of Fame worthy career, in my opinion. Whether or not he'll go in, I think he'll go in eventually. Obviously, there was a bit of a awkwardness, I would say, obviously around his release from the company and his passing due to the drug element of it and the wellness element of it. Rosie would go on to team with the Hurricane after they 3 Minute Warning would split up, getting the World Tag Team titles in the process, winning the World Tag Team titles with the Hurricane in, I believe, 2005 or 2006. Obviously, he had the terrible gimmick of the superhero in training and the initials SHIT, which that would spell out. You can spell out that for yourselves. I'm not sure about that one. And again, another fact I didn't know, that the two actually did reunite on January the 9th, 2006. In a dark match, Rosie goes through the table there. Brutal. That's the rule of these table matches I find funny. Just completely no sells that, by the way. Oh my gosh. When you have to be put through the table to be eliminated. Even though if you like dive through head first yourself, it doesn't count. Bit of strange. That's just a table spot for a table spot, really, isn't it? Great catch there by Rosie. Not. That's another one for the Botchamania Reels. I could go on the Daily Fail. Check that out on our social media accounts. A little play off the Daily Mail. But yeah, 3 Minute Warning actually did reunite January the 9th, 2006 in a dark match prior to a heat taping, defeating two local competitors. But in April, Jamal would be repackaged as Umaga and the rest would be history, and Rosie would be released. Obviously, you think about this, they're part of the Samoan dynasty, aren't they? Jamal later on becoming Umaga, unfortunately passed away in December of 2009. Afa and Sika of the Wild Samoans were his uncles, with his older brother being Rikishi. Therefore, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, would be, oh, hold that thought. Here we go. Spike's just about to go through the table. Oh, this is brutal. Oh. Slam through face first. Spike Dudley took some punishment, didn't he? I mean, some of the bumps he took for his size. Like if a guy, 200, 300 pounds took some of the bumps his size, they'd be having a broken ribs. I mean, maybe he did. I think he probably did. But yeah, that's a brutal bump. Yes, as I was said, the Usos, Jimmy and Jay, are the nephews of Umaga, Jamal, in this match. And his cousins are Yokozuna, The Rock, Rosie, and current WWE superstar Roman Reigns. Rosie, the older brother of current WWE superstar Roman Reigns, unfortunately passed away on April 17th, 2017, due to heart failure. So a bit of a sad touch when you think that both the two members of 3 Minute Warning, Jamal and Rosie, are unfortunately no longer with us. But look at this, look, they're both on the top rope. That's technically a split-legged moonsault Rosie's just done, and he's like at least north of 350 pounds. That is mind-blowing how athletic they are. I wonder what he would think about, Rosie would think about the Roman Reigns segment on SmackDown on Friday, coming out in a dog outfit. It's just stupid, isn't it? The thing is, and it got the lowest rated episode of Fox since SmackDown's debut, and it doesn't surprise me one bit, because when you see stuff like that, I remember hearing ever since we heard that SmackDown was going to Fox. When was it? Last year, sometime in 2018. SmackDown was going to Fox, and for a year, it felt like, or maybe even longer, it felt like all you would hear was Fox wants this sports-orientated product. Fox wants sports. Fox wants sport. Fox wants Daniel Cormier to be a commentator. Fox wants Ronda Rousey on their roster. Fox wants Brock Lesnar on their roster because they want a sport-like product. They want WWE to be more sport-like. They want SmackDown to be sport-like. So how does WWE react? Becoming more sports-like? Someone comes out in a dog costume with a guy in the ring dressed as a king. I mean, I can't. I can because it's WWE, but it's mind-boggling to me that they would do that. Is it not? You know, just anyway. Let's focus on the match. Jamal just splashes Rico there. This is again, like, you look at the size of Jamal or Umaga, and just the athleticism there is crazy, isn't it? It is crazy. Interesting they start off with a tag team elimination table matches. When was it? Royal Rumble 99? Is it? Or 2000? And they have the tag team table match start off, and the New York City crowd is just perfect for it, isn't it? So New York City crowd and MSG was always red hot. Smart fans as well, so they tell you exactly who they like, who they don't like. Stupid gimmicks. Imagine doing that dog thing in Madison Square Garden, you get booed out of the arena. But here goes Jeff Hardy, swanton bomb out the stands. A great shot, isn't it? Bam. It makes you think, doesn't it, that when they're coming up with these spots during the day, like, they must just get to the arena and just have a look around and just go, okay, look, can we jump out there? Can we jump out there? They're currently leveled up as one person eliminated each. Like Dudley eliminated from the Dudley Boys and Hardy team, and then Rosie eliminated from 3-minute warning. Bam. You got to be effective feeling that for a few days afterwards, haven't you? But yeah, New York City crowd, always hot, always smart. But, I mean, what is interesting? Oh, is this the famous? This is the famous botch when Rico's having to stall waiting for Jeff. I think they probably edit it, yeah, because when it happened live, obviously you see Rico standing up there. In the end, he gets pulled, well, sort of shaken off the top rope from Jeff Hardy. But when it was live, Rico's waiting for Jeff for a long, long time, to the point where he's standing on the top rope, just shouting, "Jeff, Jeff, come over here! Someone come over here!" Because he's waiting for him to come over. And well, I remember when I was younger, thinking about it, that's an obvious botch. Jeff Hardy's not in position. What's Jeff doing? Think about, why have they gone for that spot so quickly? Jeff Hardy has just done a swanton bomb out of the stands through a table outside of the ring. So we've got a fair distance to come to get to that spot anyway. And they've gone into that spot so quickly. They could have stalled a bit more time, I think. You know, they don't have to go into that spot straight away. Obviously, I know they've got time constraints. Back then, especially, it was on pay-per-view, you had to stick to the 3 hours. Not like today, where every event's 10 hours long because it's on the network and they don't have to worry about time. But yeah, why would they go to that spot so quickly? It just, I don't put as much blame on Jeff as probably some people did then, because it just doesn't. They could have stalled for time a little bit more, because he's in the aisleway selling, jumping like 20 feet through a table. So yeah. But as I was saying about the crowd, New York City, great crowd, hot crowd. But what is interesting is when WWE did their back-to-back Madison Square Garden shows in September, even then, even a New York City crowd just couldn't get behind some of the stuff they were putting out, and it was quiet. I mean, some of these Raw and SmackDown crowds nowadays, or recently, I wouldn't say nowadays, but recently, they are so quiet, because I mean, you don't have anything to cheer for. Oh my God. I mean, again, this is what I was saying about why I used to love 3-minute warning. You look at that. Jamal's just splashed from the top rope to the outside of the ring, through Jeff Hardy, through a table. And Jamal's at least 350. Got to be close to 400 pounds. Look at this. Bang. I mean, you talk about, I mentioned earlier about Brock Lesnar being a once-in-a-lifetime athlete. I mean, people like Jamal don't come along, or Umaga. People just refer to Umaga throughout this, but they don't come along that often. I mean, how many close to 400-pound people are you going to see flying through the air? People like Keith Lee. I mean, that's the kind of athlete that Umaga sort of reminds me of, being that big and that agile, that athletic. The only thing I would say about it is eventually it's got to catch up with you. I mean, you can't deny physics for that long, really, can you? That it's got to catch up with you, especially on your joints flying through the air. Little slip there from Umaga as well. Look at this. Does he get do a Frankenstein at this again? Oh no, powerbomb, bang! But even that as a move, this is a 400-pound man taking a powerbomb from the top rope through a table. Talk about getting an opening match over. Obviously, I mean, this isn't the type of match you can start off every pay-per-view with, but for like a big four event, even though nowadays I wouldn't say the big four is even really the big four anymore. Nowadays, what is it? The big five? I mean, you have the Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, obviously, SummerSlam. I mean, Survivor Series is tough. Is Survivor Series even, considered a big four event anymore? The last few years, it certainly hasn't been treated as it. Survivor Series nowadays is just bragging rights pay-per-view of a bit more prestige, isn't it? I mean, I remember they did the whole bragging rights pay-per-view for a few years back in like 2009, 2010, around that sort of time, where it was Raw versus SmackDown. I mean, originally, obviously, people are going to say that Survivor Series did the original Raw versus SmackDown feud back in 2005 with the Raw versus SmackDown team, and that's just what it is nowadays. But it's just nowadays every pay-per-view's got to have a gimmick, isn't it? So Raw and SmackDown is Survivor Series. You have Hell in the Cell, you have Money in the Bank. They have their signature matches, and here comes Devon reuniting the Dudley Boys. At the time, this is in 2002, so this is just after the original brand extension. And Devon was drafted to SmackDown, and Bubba Ray was drafted to Raw. Devon was the Reverend Devon character, which some people say they liked, some people didn't. I was on the didn't side for that one. It just wasn't for me. I mean, the Dudley Boys are the Dudley Boys. They're better together than apart. Obviously, a better single star is Bubba Ray. Bully Ray, that TNA run's unbelievable. I wish he could have done that in WWE. And there you go, 3D, bang. That's the opening match. The Dudley Boys and Jeff Hardy wins it. But yeah, if you talk about who was the the best single star out of both of them, you would have to say it was Bubba Ray. I mean, you look at like I said, the TNA run as Bully Ray. I mean, obviously world champion in TNA, leader of the Aces and Eights, but just as forgetting the Aces and Eights part of it, just as a single star, obviously Bubba was better on the mic. I don't know if he would be the better worker. That's probably up for debate. But better on the mic, better character, definitely Bully Ray. And like I said, it's a shame he never got to really portray that in WWE. And especially in PG, people would say, "Oh, it can't work." The heel Bully Ray character couldn't work in WWE, but I mean, of course it could. One, Bully Ray's such a terrific professional wrestler that he could make it work. But also, I mean, WWE's all about PG, their Be a Star anti-bullying campaign. What better to have a good heel bully character? I mean, talk about, you could have your biggest PG babyface overcome this bully character, couldn't you? So, yeah, it's a shame that never got to plan out. The rumor was when the Dudley Boys split up in, when was it, 2016? The rumor was they were very close to actually pulling the trigger on the Bully Ray character, but it just never happened. You see now the Saliva performing, as I was saying earlier, Saliva, not Survivor. This is Survivor Series. Saliva had some great WWE pay-per-view songs. WrestleMania 18, Superstar, Always. Didn't they do? I'm trying to think if it was 2001 Survivor Series. one of the Survivor Series as well, they did, or was it No Mercy? They had Click Click Boom, which is a great song. Hunt You Down, No Way Out 2009. Ladies and Gentlemen, of course, for WrestleMania 23. So they've had a lot of great WWE songs or theme songs for pay-per-view events. I vaguely recall hearing, I think it might have been Bruce Pritchard, say on his podcast that the reason that Saliva had so many WWE pay-per-view songs was due to that WWE had an affiliation with their record label or something like that. Either way, I wouldn't be as familiar with Saliva if it wasn't for WWE pay-per-view themes. I don't know about you, but I have a lot, especially on my Spotify playlist. I have a lot of bands and theme songs that I definitely wouldn't know about if it wasn't for WWE pay-per-view. Like whenever you see or hear a good pay-per-view theme from WWE, that always goes straight on the Spotify playlist. So yeah, I mean, I love Saliva. I think they're a great band. While they're doing this performance, this might be a good time to talk about, as I mentioned at the top of the video, our upload schedule for what we're aiming to do on the Wrestle News 365 YouTube channel. So, as I mentioned, the aim is to have us upload every day of the week, if possible. Obviously, there might be extenuating circumstances for some of these videos, but we're aiming to, on a Monday, post a Raw review. That would be ideally right after Raw goes off the air. Obviously, in an ideal scenario, we would be streaming live for you after Raw goes off the air. But YouTube limits you on streaming live until you get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you hear this, we'd really appreciate you if you click subscribe, and then we can get to these sort of live reviews quicker and because that's how you really want to do it. You want to have that instant reaction to a show for a review. What if it's a review that's like a couple of hours afterwards? The gleam's gone off it a little bit, really, hasn't it? And we want to give you the best content possible. So, like I said, Monday will be Raw reviews. Tuesday will be an alternative. So we'll either be reviewing NWA Power, which is obviously on YouTube on Tuesdays. I don't know about you, but I'm really enjoying NWA Power ever since it started on YouTube a few weeks ago. Studio wrestling is different to what you see on in WWE. It's different to what you see in AEW. There's no music. There's a live studio audience. It's different. So we might be doing those on Tuesdays. If we don't review NWA Power on a Tuesday, we will be reviewing AEW Dark, which is obviously their official YouTube show as well. Wednesdays, we'll be providing you with an AEW Dynamite review. Again, once we get to that 1,000 subscriber number, ideally that would be a live stream, so we can get instant reaction from ourselves and instant reaction, more importantly, from you about what you think of the show on a Wednesday. So that'll be our Wednesday video upload. Thursday would be our NXT review. Like I said, I know that one obviously wouldn't be live, and it's a bit of a delay due to it being the day after, but we still want to get your opinion as much as you want to give ours as well. So that would be our Thursday review. Friday obviously would be our Friday Night SmackDown review. If it keeps going as it is, there'll be a lot to talk about on Fridays, won't there? Especially with that. I mean, I'll go back to it, but that dog suit. I can't believe some people said they found it actually quite funny. I mean, that reeks of Vince McMahon humour, doesn't it? And then Saturday and Sundays would be our days, which, obviously, if there's a pay-per-view going on, we'd be doing pay-per-view predictions, pay-per-view reviews. If not, Saturday we'd be doing our series What If. So we say some sort of hypothetical scenarios. Some of the ones we've put on Twitter already are, what if Shawn Michaels and Triple H went to WCW and part of the NWO instead of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash? What if Finn Balor didn't get injured in 2016 and had to relinquish his Universal Championship? We'd be doing a video on that, maybe a bit of a deeper dive than we're able to do on social media. We can talk about it in long length, that, for 20, 30 minutes, really diving into those hypothetical scenarios, answering those hypothetical questions that we put on social media. And then on Sunday, I aim, if there isn't a pay-per-view, if there isn't a pay-per-view to review or do predictions for, then we'd be doing a Sunday watch-along like we're doing right now. We also, as you can see, or hopefully as you can see on the screen right now, we also are going to be starting a channel on Storyfire. So on Saturday and Sundays, we'd be doing a Storyfire exclusive video. We're not sure what those videos will consist of at the moment. Most likely, they'd be in another original series that we do on social media. So we do lots of original series. We do our series Pick One. We do sort of WrestleMania predictions throughout the year. We do the Daily Fail. We do our dream matches. We do our opinion on. So most likely they would be on a Saturday and Sunday. Our Storyfire exclusives will be uploaded. So make sure you subscribe to our Storyfire channel, and then you can make sure that you don't miss any of our content that we upload to either YouTube or Storyfire. And like I said, if you subscribe, we can get those live videos out to you quicker than ever, and we can get that instant feedback of what you think of the show, and we can get our opinion across on what we think of the shows when they've just gone off the air. And that's what we want to aim toward. As we see now in the ring, just started, is the Cruiserweight Championship match. Jamie Noble with Nydia at ringside against Billy Kidman. Billy Kidman, obviously a producer. They're both producers now, actually, for WWE, or they're both in backstage roles, as I should say. I believe that Billy Kidman helps with the timing out of the show, whereas Jamie Noble works more as a producer or an agent, whatever you want to call him, for matches and segments in WWE. Billy Kidman is, wow. I wanted to get your opinion on this. Now, Billy Kidman is probably my least favourite shooting star press, I would say. Now, why is it your least favourite? I can hear you asking. Always because I always thought he was going to die when he did it. I mean, he always looked like he was like this close to either missing it, landing on his head, breaking his neck. Wasn't it on, I believe it's on Nitro once, where he did a shooting star press, but the way he did it, he doesn't really jump. He just sort of leans back as he's sort of falling off the ropes. And I remember once on Nitro, he sort of does it, and he lands on the actual ring ropes, like on his stomach or on his head, or something like that. I think it was him anyway. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. But then that got me thinking, speaking of shooting star presses, what is my favourite shooting star press? And I did think about this a lot. I've come up with a top three. So three, my third favourite shooting star press, I think you have to go for Jushin Thunder Liger. I mean, he invented the move, so you have to go with the innovator at some point. Second, we'll see him later on in this show. I touched on him earlier as well. Would be Brock Lesnar. Now I know people will say his most famous shooting star press he botched at WrestleMania 19, which is true. He did botch it, landed on his head, nearly broke his neck. Don't know how he didn't break his neck. Landed on his head, got a concussion, still finished the match because he's a crazy beast. But when you see those videos of him doing it in OVW, I mean, he nails them every single time perfectly. I mean, and this is like, he'll be on the top of the turnbuckle and he will hit a shooting star press on someone halfway across the ring. I mean, the guy is a freak. He is an animal. It'd be interesting to know if he could still pull it off today. I don't recommend him ever going up to the top rope ever again, for one, especially what happened at WrestleMania. But he'd be my number 2 shooting star press. If you Google or YouTube those videos of him doing those shooting star presses, they are insane. And again, he was at the time, at least 250, 275 pounds, I would say. Yeah, it was something else on those shooting star presses. So Google that. So he's my number 2 shooting star press. And one favourite shooting star press would be Matt Sydal, Evan Bourne. His shooting star press was just a thing of beauty. Even in WWE, pre-WWE, post-WWE, his shooting star press was awesome. I mean, not only the height, but he never, ever looked like he was going to hurt himself, hurt his opponent, or anything like that. And I think that's the key thing with a move like a shooting star press. You just have to be, it has to be safe, and it has to look good. And his would get height. It was awesome. Speaking of which, looks like Billy Kidman's going to go for a shooting star press right now. Lydia and Jamie Noble. I remember when they first debuted, I always thought it was a strange gimmick. I mean, I get it. They'd gone with the sort of southern US thing, talk with a funny accent, lives in a trailer. I always think that sort of stuff's just a bit lowbrow. They can do a bit better than that. I mean, I understand some people some people, this is their opinion, isn't it? WWE sometimes, oh, they need a gimmick to get over. It's quite a Russoism, isn't it? Or they need a gimmick to get over. They can't just be Jamie Noble. He can be Jamie Noble. He deserved so much better in WWE. You think about his short but great run in Ring of Honor in 2005. He was a former ROH World Champion. He had some great matches with the likes of Daniel Bryan, CM Punk, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels. I mean, that if you're competing with those kind of level of performers, and Ring of Honor at the time in 2005 isn't what they is today. They were sort of the fledgling up and coming promotion, great work, great matches. Obviously, a bit of controversy in their past, but they were the company at the time that had said great matches. Work rate was the key theme, wasn't it? Work rate, 60-minute matches, and if they put the belt on Jamie Noble, then that shows what they thought of him and how much potential he had, really. So yeah, deserved better. Probably was part of the you're not big enough problem in WWE. Sometimes in WWE, if you're under 6 foot, then you can't be a superstar at all. Which of course we know isn't the case. You look at people like Rey Mysterio and people like that. That if you can put up a good match, that determines how much of a star you are. So yeah, he deserved better in WWE. Jamie Noble. But only got to the cruiserweight title part of it, and unfortunately, see Billy Kidman going up there as well. A lot of people as well, Billy Kidman, their first thought, isn't it, is Tori Wilson. Obviously, lucky man that he was married to Tori Wilson. See now, bam, face first, inverted DDT from Billy Kidman, nice. Cruiserweight title as well, for me, has a bit of a mixed history, doesn't it, in WWE? Around this time, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, around this time, it was taken more seriously. Yeah, Paul Heyman was the head writer of SmackDown, wasn't he, at the time? Bang! Oh my gosh. Look at that DDT. Randy Orton, eat your heart out. That was nice. Yeah, the Cruiserweight title around this period of time was treated more seriously, more longer matches, more competitive matches. And this sort of carried on, I would say, for the next few years, wasn't it? Because you had the likes of Matt Hardy, the version 1 character, dropping weight to compete for the Cruiserweight title. You had Rey Mysterio, who would go on to win the Cruiserweight title and be involved in that. But then, like anything in WWE, they grow tired of it, they grow bored of it. Vince McMahon grows tired of it, grows bored of it, and then it becomes filler, it becomes comedy. I remember, was it Gregory House? Oh, here we go. Again, this is my least favourite shooting star press. No, that one. New Cruiserweight champion, there you go. Like I said, just I mean, he got that one in fairness to Billy Kidman, but it always just seems like he's going to kill himself, or just seems slightly too dangerous for my liking. And look at him, the crowd is going mild. Where is he going? He's just walking through the crowd. It always makes me laugh when they have these the jumping in the crowd to celebrate him. I think they did it with the Street Profits a couple of weeks ago when Montez Ford had that baby in the crowd, and it's just the whole point of going into the crowd is that the crowd's gonna celebrate with them, jump around. Oh, it's an amazing moment. But obviously, then they have security all around them. That if you even bother to touch the superstar, they'll wrestle you to the ground. Kind of defeats the purpose of it. There you go, shooting star press. Even then, again, my point exactly. It's a shooting star press, but his feet hit the bottom ring rope at the bottom, and yeah, it just seems so dangerous. It is a dangerous move. That's why. The Kurt Angle, the man who shall not be named, backstage. Kurt Angle, in some of these promo segments around this period of time, or even sort of the year prior, in his segments with Stone Cold. I mean, you would think someone who is an Olympic gold medalist would maybe struggle for that sort of personality on the mic or comedic timing. But But he was great. He was great, Kurt Angle, in that sort of news segments. What interests me, and I don't have an answer to this, so it's more hypothetical, but I do just sort of wonder how much was sort of written for him at this time. Because when he came back in his most recent run with WWE, when he was the general manager, he just never had that sort of comedic timing in those segments that he did, back in the early 2000s. And I just sort of wonder, even back now, even then, even if we watch on now in 2002, it was scripted. They did have rehearsals and they had writers, but in comparison to today in WWE, the amount of writers they have, and by all accounts for every segment, for the smallest amount as well, even pre-tapes that are like a minute apparently can take like 45 minutes for them to do over and over and over again, rewrites. He just never had that comedic time. Look now, he's hugging Benoit as his partner, and you just didn't have that comedic timing when he came back as a Raw GM. They teased it. I remember his first night back as GM, Enzo Amore and Cass came in and did their soft SAWFT routine. And he did like a funny one-liner. Then you thought, oh, this is the old Kurt Angle. And they just never wrote like that for him again. Or I don't know. It's just typical WWE writers. We currently see what is being called as the F view. I completely forgot about this type of segment. I guess the F view is a play on Goldust's GTV back in the day, and Victoria's just smashed a mirror. That's good luck, apparently. And she's ripped off the head of a Trish Stratus cardboard cutout. I mean, that's the kind of segment that gets you hyped for a match, isn't it? I guess they would call that character development, portraying Victoria as a psycho. That FU, did that ever go anywhere? That FU segment, I'd completely forgotten about that. But again, like I said, maybe it's a rip-off of the GTV. And we're moving on next to a hardcore match for the Women's Championship, Trish Stratus versus Victoria. Now, a hardcore rules match between two women at this period of time in WWE was completely unheard of, really, wasn't it? I mean, I think maybe, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head, maybe didn't they have a street fight on Raw around this time? Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that in 2002, Trish Stratus did one of the most brutal table spots for a female superstar I've seen with, I think it was Bubba Ray in 2002. It was on Raw, and they were teaming up in like a hardcore match, or Bubba Ray was the hardcore champion at the time, I believe. And it's against, I forget who it was against. Anyway, the finish of the match is that Bubba Ray gets blinded by, it might be the powder to the face, the salt to the face, whatever they call it. And he mistakes Trish Stratus for someone else, and he powerbombs the hell out of her through a table. I mean, absolutely destroys her. Because, I mean, I don't even want to guess. It's not polite to guess how much a woman weighs, is it? But, I mean, Trish Stratus is light. So for her to break a table, Bubba knows he has to slam her. And oh my gosh, does he slam her? It absolutely destroys her. I mean, how she didn't have broken ribs at that time, I have no idea. But yeah, a hardcore match at this period of time in WWE was unheard of. I mean, a female, big rivalry at this point was pretty unheard of. I mean, look at how chair shots to the head. I mean, it's great. I think, I just really touched on Victoria's character a minute ago, but Victoria, similar to Trish and Lita, and I would say their real Trish and Lita rivalry maybe came a little bit later than this, actually, in sort of 2004, 2005, whenever they had their main event of Raw. I think it was 2004. But Victoria and Trish, they actually had proper matches. Not this 5, or less than 5 minutes, that'd be amazing. This 2-minute, at the time, Divas match, which had no real moves, no storytelling, no nothing. Victoria and Trish had proper matches. They had real storytelling in the match, and the crowd was into it. you listen to this New York City crowd. The crowd is for this match. The crowd is into it. So this shows that the demand for this women's evolution was even evident back then. They just wanted good matches. Demand's always been there. You look at Japanese matches, Aja Kong, Bull Nakado, all that sort of stuff. The demand's always been there. It just WWE in the late 90s got into the idea of sex sales, and they never looked back, really, did they? It did great for them in the ratings. I guess that was the flavour of the time. So they just never thought, okay, we're going to actually put our female superstars in matches that they can actually have good storytelling, good work rate, good moves, and get the crowd into it. And people talk about, the likes of Lita and Trish when they think of the pioneers during this time of the women's evolution, which is perfectly justified. Obviously, Lita and Trish, they're both current WWE Hall of Famers, and some of their matches they had together were great, and they did a lot for women's wrestling in WWE. But I think people do forget about people like Victoria. I mean, she's a great talent, had great matches, and like I said, had great matches maybe earlier on than the Trish and Lita rivalry in WWE. I mean, they're having a hardcore match at Survivor Series in Madison Square Garden. I mean, that's women's evolution right there, isn't it? And this is early. This is 2002. So they should really. It would be nice if they mentioned someone like Victoria more often, especially with the run she had in WWE. She was with WWE for a long time. Goes over to TNA at the time to become Tara. Becomes a knockout champion several times, and just a great worker, really great worker, and great character, more importantly, as well. And I think when talking about the women's evolution in WWE, they should definitely talk about her more. Hopefully she gets her recognition. And then I know they always have a female inductee every year, don't they, into the WWE Hall of Fame, and I would think she's definitely deserving of the spot for what she contributed to WWE, especially in matches like this. I mean, as this match will go on, you'll see how brutal this is. You can't really. It's difficult now, especially with how featured the female WWE superstars are. How important this kind of match is at the time. Now even now in 2019, they're having the first ever. They had. Is it only the second female Hell in a Cell this year? And obviously females main event in Wrestlemania earlier this year. They love their firsts WWE, don't they? So to have a hardcore match between two female superstars is huge, absolutely huge. So we're going for now trash can. Victoria does the whole the psycho character very well, doesn't she? I think it's again. This goes back to WWE. Sometimes lacks storytelling. Why is a female character always got to be a psycho? The amount of female psychos that they've done is just that's a nice spot. Trish just sort of positioned. I'm not sure what that was. Trish just sort of did a slingshot of Victoria's face into a trash can, which is a nice spot. But the spot after that was one that didn't really make sense. She put the trash can on her face and just kicked it off. I'm not sure the damage that would have done. And this is when it gets into sort of the goofy element of hardcore matches. She's got out an ironing board. I'm not sure why. That's probably WWE's subtle attempt at funny humour. Oh, it's a female match, got to get out an ironing board, domesticated. Just dumb. But to be honest, if you think you can't really gimmick an ironing board, can you? I mean, they're sturdy, to say the least. I'm not sure how much it would hurt, but obviously certain weapons in WWE you can gimmick so they don't hurt as bad. But when you get out objects like an ironing board, I mean, Nash got out a kendo stick or Singapore cane. Depends when WWE wants to call it, whatever they want to call it. Get a trash can lid. Oh, man. The great thing I like with the things like the trash can lids and the cookie sheets, you see Victoria Nash got busted nose as well. Again, this you just didn't see this at the time in WWE, and this is what was great. And like I said, the crowd are into it, especially I know it's a New York crowd and they're hot anyway, but they're smart, so they know if something's good or bad, and they'll tell you if something's good or bad, and this is good. Bang. When you think about females, I know this is obviously isn't getting colour the traditional way. This is obviously hard way that Victoria's got colour from her nose after I think from like I said that slingshot into the trash can spot. But females getting colour, females in a hardcore match. This is trailblazing stuff. It's awesome. And she's got out the mirror now. Yeah, that's cool. That's a fun spot, isn't it? And that's good storytelling, really. She talked about she smashed the mirror earlier on. She's obsessed with. I think the storyline going into this is that these were two like fitness model competitors or something like that. So if she'd have, I can't remember if she does smash the mirror on her. We'll have to wait and see. A hell of a spot she did. Oh, not sure about that bulldog. But yeah, I don't know about you. When I was a kid, I remember I actually I found some of these like trash can lids and cookie sheets that you can get from just your sort of local supermarket or anything like that, and you realise how sort of flimsy they actually are. And then once you realise how flimsy they are, and like hitting someone with them doesn't actually hurt that much. And yeah, you hit your friends with them, they're great, and and you realise that they sound great. Fire extinguisher. I always think fire extinguisher to the face. Surely that's dangerous. Surely what if it gets in your eyes? Yeah, there you go, Joe. What happens if it gets you in the eyes? And bang, Victoria, new women's champion. I mean, obviously, that's definitely. Wouldn't think that was a botch, but Trish Stratus did the old kick out at 3.5, which I've just never got that. What is that purpose? 1, 2, 3. Oh, I just kicked out afterwards. They just got me. Just put your opponent over. Kick out. Don't kick out. That's the point. The match is over. Kick out. Don't kick out. Stupid. But yeah, Victoria gets the win there. A great match. Fun match. Hardcore matches are as fun as you can make them. Sometimes they can get goofy, with some of the things, like in this match, the iron board. I'm never massively keen on that. And then sometimes they can get a bit too much. You think about Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega. It'd be interesting to know what your opinions are on that. For me, it was slightly too much. I'm a big ECW fan. I wasn't around, unfortunately, in ECW's heyday in the early 90s, mid 90s. But I loved ECW, but my first exposure to ECW was actually ECW One Night Stand 2005, and it completely blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it at the time. So my point I'm trying to make is that big fan of that style, and I enjoy those hardcore matches very much. But the Jon Moxley one and the Kenny Omega one, I felt it was maybe 10 minutes too long. I think part of the people's complaint with AEW so far is, and they do it quite a lot in their matches, where they'll have a spot that the crowd really, really pops for, and you go, that's the finish, that's it. And then it's a near fall, which is fine, but the crowd are ready for it to end there, and then you can't get them back up to that point, and it goes like a couple minutes longer, and then you have the finish, and everyone's like, well, that was great, but it could have ended a couple minutes. I was ready for it to end a couple minutes ago, sort of thing. So the Kenny Omega Jon Moxley match, like I said, maybe went 7-10 minutes too long. Some of the spots were they were obviously going for that sort of Japanese deathmatch kind of style. You know, some of the broken glass. I don't mind that. Some people aren't a massive fan of the broken glass. I think that's fine. The barbed wire sort of spiderweb thing was maybe a little bit too much for me. And again, anything there could have been the finish. And like I said, I just felt when you keep doing those near falls, eventually you can't top it. Regardless of what the finish is, it's never going to live up because they're going, oh, I kicked out of this, kicked out of that. And then the finish, the paradigm shift onto the boards, I understand that's more than enough to keep down a competitor. But when you've done like a spot in broken glass, when you've done a spot in the barbed wire spider web, when you've done the spot through the stage, they're all match finishing spots for me. And it just never, it always felt like it was trying to top itself so much to the point where you can't top itself anymore, you know, which is great grammar from me, that sentence, I know. But yeah, it was never, I thought it was good. Like I said, maybe it went on too long. And I don't understand where you can go from there. You look at, obviously, to me, it would appear that the feud isn't over. You look at Dynamite this past week. Kenny Omega wasn't cleared. Moxley was. The idea of, Moxley got the better of Omega, and there's maybe a rematch down the road. But that type of match, especially for the spots they were doing in that match, to me has to be a finish. That has to be a blow-off match. But it doesn't appear it is. We'll see where they go from here. But what match can you do to top that? Do you have the same match again? Like, what? I mean, at this point, it's going to have to be a death match to the point where one of them died. I mean, heaven forbid. But it was a bit too much for me. And I think that was mainly the consensus of most of the feedback I've got from that Full Gear event, is that the match was great, but maybe a little bit too much. Maybe more than was necessary for the match. But we'll see. Jon Moxley facing Darby Allin this week on Dynamite, which was something we predicted actually during our live commentary on our Twitter account at 365Wrestle. So yeah, that should be a fun match. Again, I hope they don't pigeonhole Moxley to the point of, in the same way with Darby Allin, I hope they don't pigeonhole them to the point where they can only be hardcore deathmatch style wrestlers, because they do have a lot more to offer. Jon Moxley can be great without the hardcore style. It's just one element to him. So I hope they don't go too far on that side of things. But we'll see. I think Kenny Omega most likely will be back this week in ring. I'm not sure if he's been advertised for anything yet. But we'll see. We'll see where we go with that. Currently have the promo package for the Brock Lesnar Big Show WWE Championship match. This is in the process in which they're turning Brock Lesnar face. Again, I touched on it earlier. The year that Brock Lesnar has, or is having at this point in 2002, is absolutely crazy. It really is crazy. Debuting after WrestleMania, King of the Ring, wins WWE Championship, then becomes exclusive to SmackDown, has those great matches with The Undertaker. I believe the first one he had was with The Undertaker in September, Unforgiven, which was a great match, really enjoyable match. And then they have the blow-off match in the Hell in a Cell at No Mercy, and man, I mean, if you like Hell in a Cell matches, a good Hell in a Cell match, go and find No Mercy 2002, Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. It is, I mean, The Undertaker bleeds like a pig in that match, which is, at that point, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head how much The Undertaker got colour. Obviously, through the 90s, The Undertaker never got colour, especially the early, mid-90s when he was still playing the Dead Man character. He would very, very, very rarely get colour. But in the 2002 No Mercy Hell in a Cell match, he, like I said, bleeds like a pig. I mean, really like a pig, but it's great. It's a really fun match, and it really cemented Lesnar, I think. People at the time thought, obviously Lesnar does have the credentials with his amateur background, NCAA champion, all that sort of stuff, but people were wondering, is this too much too soon? Is WWE just, strapping the rocket to Lesnar too early? But you saw at the time that he was special in that match, and that's what a Hell in a Cell match should be. We have the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view every year, and you have these Hell in a Cell matches that aren't worthy of the feud. Hell in a Cell was always the blow-off match. It wasn't exclusive to any pay-per-view. That you had the match and that ended the feud, and they were brutal, they were bloody, and it worked. You think of the likes of Batista, Triple H. You think of The Undertaker versus Brock Lesnar, The Undertaker versus Randy Orton. Those matches come to mind. They ended the feud. It worked. And whereas nowadays, just that Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, I mean, I think there's been 50 Hell in a Cell matches around that sort of number. And just the last few years, a lot of the matches inside Hell in a Cell just haven't been worth it, or they haven't been worthy of the match. I don't even want to get into the Bray Wyatt Seth Rollins one from this year. But yeah, it's such a good match, and it's such a iconic match from its start with Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, and then obviously the Undertaker Mick Foley or Mankind one a year later. Yeah, it's worth more. It's worth more. That's the point. So going into this match, obviously there a little side note there. You see the amount of flashbulbs going off at the moment. I used to love that. I used to love when the superstar, the best one for it was The Rock. The Rock used to come out and he used to do his corner pose, and man, the amount of light bulbs you used to see, you don't see that nowadays, because everyone's got the smartphone camera, and their camera doesn't really need a flash. It's just their cameras are great. But yeah, back in the day, used to go to the turnbuckles and the flash. That's how you could tell how big a moment was, or how over a superstar was. You could see how over The Rock is just by the flashes of the cameras in the corner. It was great. But going into this match, obviously they're playing up the story that Brock Lesnar's got injured ribs or broken ribs, and how can he's not ready for the Big Show. He's never faced anyone like the Big Show. Big Show's world's largest athlete. How can Brock Lesnar beat the Big Show of broken ribs? That's the point that they're trying to make, I guess, in this match. And like I said, this is the process of Lesnar's pretty much a face at this point, but this is all part of the process of turning Lesnar into a baby face, or into the face of the WWE. I hate that phrase, but it's turning him into, the face of WWE. He'll go on to win the Royal Rumble in a few months at the start of 2003, have that great match against Kurt Angle at Wrestlemania, be properly solidified as the face of the WWE at that point. But yeah, the story they're trying to tell in this match is that how can Lesnar overcome the giant with his broken ribs? And at this point, Brock Lesnar hasn't been defeated, remember, in WWE. Does a side suplex, doesn't really lift him, he jumps. He doesn't need to as well, because Lesnar's an animal. He could pick up Big Show, and he's done it a million times. Still impressive every time he does it. The thing that does make me laugh is that every time he does pick up the Big Show, or has ever since, for the F5 or a suplex or anything like that, everyone's like, oh my god, I've never seen that before. Oh, you have. Now that is a legit German suplex that he pulls on him. That's unbelievable. Paul Heyman with the ponytail there as well. I was always fascinated with Paul Heyman's ponytail, because Paul Heyman's been bald since definitely since ECW. He was bald in ECW, but just always kept that ponytail. And even, that's a hell of a ref bump. Oh my god. Look at this, bang. How impressive are those suplexes? Every time he does it, the crowd pops. Because at that point, has anyone belly to belly the Big Show at that point in WWE since Big Show's debuted? But yeah, that was a heck of a ref bump. The rope is still shaking 30 seconds later from that ref bump. Low blow there. Bang. Here we go. F5. The crowd, look at that. They're on their feet. That's a legit F5 as well. That's not the F5 where the Big Show sort of falls off. He full on spun him around. And here we go. The Heyman turn. Man, Heyman could not throw a right hand at all, can he? So this is the big Paul Heyman turn on Brock Lesnar. Again, this is smart because obviously as they're positioning, like Heyman's reactions, Heyman's facial reactions are great. They're still great. Look at that, wide-eyed. Heyman knows. But yeah, the Heyman turn on Lesnar was wise because I mean, how can you have someone as the face of the WWE or being a top babyface with Heyman as your manager? He's the slimy heel manager. That's his best role, isn't it? Bang, chokeslam on the chair. And there you go. 2, 3. Big Show, new WWE champion, excuse me. First defeat Lesnar ever had in the WWE. And there is the Paul Heyman Big Show turn or pairing. I mean, that match only goes like 5 minutes, which is smart. I mean, it plays up the storyline rib injury, and I think it does protect Brock. I mean, the psychology that goes into that match is that he had broken ribs and he had a giant beat in only a few minutes, and it took for a chair shot to the ribs, a choke slam on the chair, his manager to turn on him, and as I touched on, this is all really part of the process to turn Lesnar face, building him to become the face of the company. The crowd was shocked. I mean, Brock Lesnar was set up as this unbeatable beast, and he's got broken ribs, and he still manages to have the giant beat. So I don't think it made Lesnar, or definitely didn't make Lesnar lose any steam. And that type of match doesn't need to go 20, 25 minutes. I think it would be a mistake to have anything, go that long for a Brock Lesnar versus the Big Show match. Obviously, later on, they would have those longer matches. But at the time, and that's a fun shot, isn't it? Look, Heyman and Big Show run out of the arena in a limo. It's probably my least favourite Big Show attire as well, by the way. I'm not sure about that jeans and top singlet combination there. I was always a fan of the Andre the Giant type attire on him. I think he wore it a little bit too long. He doesn't need those comparisons to Andre all the time. He's his own man, or he is his own giant, shall we say. But I remember in 2009, when he had that run with Chris Jericho, that Jericho tag team, he changed his look slightly. See, at the time, he was wearing that Andre the Giant one-strap singlet. And when Chris Jericho introduced him at Night of Champions 2009, he comes out in just, honestly, he like shaved his goatee into like a half goatee, and he came out in these singlets. And at the time, there's a little behind the scenes story here. At the time, I was on, actually, little sidebar. Can we talk about what Michael Cole was wearing? Oh my God. Leather jacket and turtleneck combination. I mean, you look at some of these pay-per-views and TVs from back in 2002 or prior. Nowadays, everyone has to wear the suit and tie, but some of the attire that some of these announcers were wearing at the time baffles me. But yes, as I was saying, the Big Show's attire. I was on a WWE chat when Night of Champions 2009 was just starting, and a guest on the chat at the time was William Regal, who at the time was competing in ECW, or WWE ECW, and the Big Show came out or was revealed as Chris Jericho's mystery partner. And this is a quote, I quote, William Regal said, "What is Big Show wearing? ? He looks like a giant Easter egg." And ever since I heard that, that's all I could think of when he was in those weird singlets. It was like, there was a purple one, there was a bright blue one, and they were not flattering as well. They were quite tight fitting. It didn't look the best. I mean, now, Big Show, oh my gosh, you look at him, he's a giant with abs, isn't he? That's another thing I would recommend. The Big Show's documentary. I believe it's called Rebuilding the Big Show. It's on the WWE Network. I watched that earlier this year. It's a good watch. You find out that he's been cleared to return to the ring of WWE. I think he's been cleared since like April or something like that. But he's since moved out to LA to film, to have more Hollywood opportunities. It was announced that WWE and Netflix are co-producing a Big Show sitcom or a Big Show TV show called, I think it's called like The Big Show's Show or something like that. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Obviously, his previous acting roles, he was in Waterboy, which is a great film. But after that, his follow-up acting appearance in the unbelievable film, I see that in jest, of Knucklehead. I have actually seen that because it's over here in the UK. Knucklehead's such a strange one because if you're flicking through, and only the UK viewers or listeners to this will get this, but if you're flicking through Sky Movies here in the UK, for some reason Knucklehead always seems to be on, and I don't know why, because it's like the worst film I've ever seen in my life. I mean, no offense, Big Show, if you do hear this, but oh my gosh, it's the worst. It was that WWE Studios run. I say run, it's still going on, isn't it? Where they just released some of the worst films. This is around the time of Triple H in The Chaperone, John Cena in, was it called Legendary or something like that? I mean, they were just awful films. Which is strange because the first few WWE studio films I actually really liked. Obviously, I think I've seen parts of See No Evil. I think that's got a bit of a cult following now, hasn't it? But after that, they had Condemned with Stone Cold Steve Austin. And honestly, that is such a fun film. If you like action films, they don't take themselves too seriously, but it's a fun film. The Condemned's a really enjoyable film. I really like that. And they had the first John Cena the Marine, which again I enjoyed that. I thought that was fun. But those first couple of films were actually full-on box office releases. They were at the theaters and people could go out and go see them. And I think all of them just did awfully at the box office. So WWE changed their strategy, or WWE Studios, shall I say, changed their strategy to come to direct-to-video releases, which, though, if it's direct-to-video, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be an awful film, and a lot of them are. So as we can see now, you have a great promo package for the Triple Threat Tag Team title match, and they go into the crowd to see Al Snow and Dawn Marie. I'd forgotten about that storyline, I think for good reasons. But I remember hearing a story, I think Tori Wilson told it on Table for Three, that Al Wilson actually went up to Vince McMahon when he was working there and asked to ride to the next town with him or something like that. Yeah, that's Al Wilson. You know, Los Guerrero's coming out. Eddie Guerrero still full Latino eat there. I think he's still got the mullet. Now, this is where the pay-per-view gets really good. We only have 2 matches left. We have this Triple Threat Tag Team Elimination match, and then we have the Elimination Chamber main event. But, I mean, if you just look at the competitors in this match, this is so SmackDown 2002, isn't it? I mean, the blue brand SmackDown, in addition to Brock Lesnar, was pretty much built around these 6. I think they were called, wasn't it, the SmackDown 6? They were called, I believe. And it was just all about work rate, wasn't it? It was all about work rate, great matches, and all 6 guys trying to get over, essentially. I mean, it just comes out now. But I believe Kurt Angle, I think, is the only person in this match to hold the WWE Championship at this point. But later on in their careers, 5 out of the 6 would later go on to become world champions. If you consider the ECW or the WWE ECW Championship a world championship, then all 6 would go on to become a world champion. I don't consider that a world championship because it never main evented a pay-per-view that was any good. People are going to say, oh, it main evented December to Dismember, but that isn't a pay-per-view that's any good. So, and when Chavo Guerrero became ECW world champion, the brand was already dead at that point. So, but yeah, 5 of the 6 would go on to become world champions, which says a lot about their talent, really, doesn't it? And you look at this, the team of Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit. I mean, their chemistry in the ring as a team or as competitors were awesome. Just the matches they always had were always superb. And again, going back to No Mercy, the pay-per-view prior to this, I spoke earlier about the Brock Lesnar Undertaker Hell in a Cell match was tremendous on that show. but the tag team title match in that show between Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit, Edge and Rey Mysterio to become the inaugural WWE Tag Team Champions was also tremendous. It's a great match. Definitely go out of your way to watch that if you have the time this week. It is awesome. Now you see Rey Mysterio just about to come out. What I loved at this time as well is that the talk about just having distinctive, separate brands. The championships always look different as well. I think part of the problem nowadays is, with the Raw Tag Team Championships and the SmackDown Tag Team Championships, they're the same belt, but it's just, a different colour leather or a different colour leather strap. Obviously, the Raw one's being red and the SmackDown one's being blue. Whereas in this case, not only did they have different names, so Raw you had the World Tag Team Championship, on SmackDown you had the WWE Tag Team Championship, but the designs were also completely different. They were completely different titles, which adds to the sort of distinct separation of brands. A lot of people have said that the only way to have a brand extension truly work is to have separate designs, separate tag team titles, and everything's got to look different. The presentation of the show, the sets, the music. It's great to have new sets like they have and bring Pyro back, but everything needs to be different to truly have a different feel as the brands, and having different championships works to that. Part of the problem now is that your WWE or your WWE Universal title looks the same. It's just different leather. It adds to, for me, it adds to prestige. It adds to captivating the audience's attention. If everything is different, then you can have that real difference between shows, which sometimes they don't have, and that's ultimately is why the brand extension always fails, because things that aren't different enough, then people stop watching, and then WWE start cross mingling to make people watch again. And I think that's what will happen. It's already started to happen, hasn't it, with the current brand extension? But I mean, I like the idea of brand extension. I think it can easily work, but it's always doomed to fail if you don't make things different, if you don't build up a competitive rivalry between brands, because there's no loyalty, is there? At the moment, the way to get it to work is you have to be either a fan of Raw or you have to be a fan of SmackDown. At the moment, if you're a fan of WWE, you'll watch both. If the brands were truly different and they were truly competitive, then you would just have fans of Raw or you'd have fans of SmackDown. Nowadays, to be honest, you don't have fans of either, because WWE has so many lapsed fans that there's no point of even watching it anymore. I think the majority of WWE's viewers probably come on the likes of YouTube, because you can watch an episode of Raw in 10 minutes and watch the key highlights, rather than sit there twiddling your thumbs for 3 hours, which is unfortunately is what I have to do for a living. I joke, I love this. It's brilliant. You see classic Edge ring attire there. I think, isn't it Kurt Hawkins now? That's like slightly copied the Edge ring attire with the sort of flames. A little nod to their Edge heads, I guess, then. This is peak Kurt Angle here as well. He is a machine. You use the people have to tag in and tag out. You can tag any team you want, sort of element of this match, which is fine. The thing that bothers me quite a lot about tag team wrestling at the moment is, and I know I'm going to sound like Jim Cornette here, but the thing that bothers me the most is a tag should be, and in fairness to AEW, they did this at Full Gear with the Santana Ortiz and the Young Bucks match, that the way a tag match should happen, a legal tag should be holding the tag rope, and a tag of slapping hands or tag between hands. This whole blind tag thing, this whole a tag of like touching the leg or all that sort of rubbish, to me that's not a tag. That's why people like the Revival are so good, is because they are traditional tag team. Tags have to be holding the tag rope, touching hands. That's a tag match. That's not this whole blind tag thing doesn't really work for me. That's not my style of watching a tag team match. get Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio here, they would have an unbelievable feud only a few years later. What's always fascinating with Eddie Guerrero as well is that, you know, you hear about lots of people that were in the ring with Eddie, is they'll even say at this point, this is like half of what Eddie Guerrero could be. Kurt Angle has gone on record several times, hasn't he, and said that, you know, he didn't think that he wrestled Eddie at his best, even though Eddie was healthy and clean and sober at the time. The best Eddie Guerrero was prior to Eddie getting injured in WCW when he had his car accident. I listened to, or I watched a interview a couple of weeks ago where people spoke about, Eddie Guerrero spoke about his accident he had, his drink driving accident, where he really shouldn't have been alive afterward. You hear about the story about him being flung from his vehicle and landing in a tree, and people finding him and thinking he was dead, and the fact that he even managed to get back in the ring after that is a testament, let alone the quality of matches he had. But a lot of people have said that he wasn't the same in ring afterwards, which just makes you think, because I mean, the standard that he is in this match and he is going forward and afterwards, in towards the end of his WWE run, and some of the matches he would have, is that he wasn't even at his best then. So imagine if, you know, a fully, completely healthy Eddie Guerrero in WWE, that would have been, oh yeah, man, he was destined for greatness anyway. He overcame his demons and he overcame the stigma of being too small to be a WWE champion, and he is sorely missed. I believe it was the 14th anniversary of his passing only a few days ago. And like I said, he's sorely missed. He's one of the greats. Obviously, he was inducted to the Hall of Fame a couple of months after he passed, but he is truly one of the greats. And I think it says a lot about today. You hear a lot. It seems like almost every WWE superstar or just professional wrestler in general cites Eddie Guerrero as an inspiration to why they became a wrestler or why they decided to get into the business, or the first wrestler that captivated them when they started watching. So it says a lot. I mean, that's the kind of standard that Eddie Guerrero set and the kind of inspirational figure that he is in professional wrestling. What kind of gear is Rey Mysterio wearing? Is that like, and that's a clothesline and a half, that is G. Yeah, is that like a leopard crossed with a zebra kind of gear? Rey Mysterio won some wacky gear, hasn't he? During his time. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head what kind of the gear he's worn before. He's been Captain America, been the Flash. He was Heath Ledger's Joker at WrestleMania 25. I love Chris Benoit snap suplex as well. Proper Dynamite Kid snap suplex. I was watching some Dynamite Kid matches the other day, and I mean, talk about a wrestler ahead of his time. If you've never ever watched a Dynamite Kid match, go and watch some of his matches against the likes of Tiger Mask. That I think they're on YouTube. Honestly, you would think you were watching a video of like modern day wrestling. Some of the stuff that they're doing. Talk about like pioneers, and the match almost seems out of its time. When you see a match like that, and when a match like that holds up in today's work rate, I mean, the in-ring style has evolved so much, really, hasn't it? When you compare today, even to like matches like this, it already seems so different. But that Tiger Mask versus Dynamite Kid match is in like the 80s, and it holds up today of in-ring style and work rate, which says a lot. It says a real lot. So definitely go and see that. Dynamite Kid, one of the greats as well. He's no one that maybe he's not inducted into the Hall of Fame yet. Same as British Bulldog, isn't it? I mean, that's got to be a shoe-in, surely. You think about the show so far as well. That what's interesting, as I mentioned earlier, that with no traditional Survivor Series tag team matches, the Survivor Series element of this show isn't a necessity. The type of matches that they're having, and obviously with the main event to come, I'm jumping a bit ahead of myself here, but with the Elimination Chamber match, that's your Survivor Series element, isn't it? Can you survive the Chamber sort of thing? But it did surprise me. I will be honest, it did surprise me that this was the second Survivor Series event not to have any, traditional Survivor Series tag team matches, especially when you think nowadays of how much they over rely on that for the gimmick of the event. A nice spinning heel kick from Rey Mysterio there. Stuff like that. I mean, that's genius, isn't it? That's proper psychology. That Kurt Angle was going for the tag there, and Eddie Guerrero jumps off the edge of the apron. If this was a shoot, and this is the phrase some people hate to hear, isn't it? If this was a shoot, why on earth would Eddie Guerrero tag in from a competitor? It's the smart thing is to have you not be in the match at all, because it's an elimination match as well. So why would you even bother getting in the ring? Sometimes you can overthink the psychology, I think, of wrestling a bit too much with that sort of stuff. Oh my gosh. That was an awesome move from Eddie Guerrero there as well. No, that is such a cool move. That's unbelievable. If you aren't watching along with this, Edge has just gone for a spear, and Kurt Angle countered it into a drop toe hold, which has gone into a crossface by Benoit. And whilst he's in the crossface, Angle gets him into an ankle lock. I mean, that's not only was it smooth as well, smoother than me describing it. Rey Mysterio spin and plancha, unbelievable. Again, it just that the fact that it's that smooth, and I mean, the match really picked up pace now, but that shows how the quality that Kurt Angle was, wow, that's unbelievable. Triple team name that is. Some of the creativity in these spots is absolutely crazy. Benoit and Eddie Guerrero locking up now. Oh, Eddie Guerrero just back suplex out of the ring. His face hits the apron as he's flipping over. That was awesome as well. Tell you what, Edge can take a German suplex and a half, can't he? For a guy as big as he is, people forget how actually big, in terms of height, Edge is. And he can sour his ass off as well. Unbelievable. Guerrero, frog splash. I don't know about you, but whenever I go back, it is difficult to watch Chris Benoit matches still, obviously, considering about his demise and his family's demise, and you sort of cringe, don't you, every time you see him, especially when you see him hit like a diving headbutt. It's always a bit bang. Championship to the back. I always hate when they say championship to the back, but he hit him on the shoulders. I get obviously hitting him with a foreign object, but that's not enough for him to be knocked out, is it? So at this point, they're trying to say that about Benoit thinking as Angle hit him in the back with the tag team titles. Surely that's enough to get disqualified. I mean, obviously they might have explained it on commentary. I can't hear as much because I'm talking to you guys, but surely that's enough to warrant a disqualification, and then the Guerrero should be eliminated. Is that not correct? No. Bang. Spear. Benoit and Angle eliminated. I mean, the last 10-15 minutes of this match, they've really ramped up. And the crowd are into it. The crowd's hot. And again, that was my point there. Edge can just sour the hell up a German suplex. Obviously, Mysterio can, because he weighs at this point 180 pounds. Obviously, Benoit and Angle had the sort of blow up against each other. Did they have? I'm just trying to think. Did they have a blow off pay-per-view match against each other? I don't think they did, because this is November, so in December they have the Big Show versus Kurt Angle Armageddon match, don't they? Whereby Kurt Angle wins the WWE Championship. Spoiler, sorry. I'm just trying to think. I can't think that Kurt Angle and Benoit had the blow off match, did they? Unless no, they did. They did. It would have been at 2003. It would have been the Royal Rumble WWE Championship match. I can't believe I forgot about it. That is a match that's worth watching as well. That is awesome. So the two teams left: Los Guerreros and Edge and Rey Mysterio. I used to always love as well. You see referee Brian Hebner there. We spoke briefly about NWA Power earlier. Brian Hebner now with the NWA. Appears a lot on the NWA Power show. He always did. This was a massive bugbear of mine. He just did it then. He used to, if there was a 2 count and everyone ever looked at him, he'd count 2 in his hands. He'd go 1, 2, and then put his shoulder up. So he did that for every 4. Bro, he's like, we get it, 2 count. But the point I was going to make is that again, this goes back to the different. Trying to differentiate between brands, make brands feel different, is that you see there they've got the SmackDown referee shirt. Raw had the sort of traditional black and white striped referee shirt. SmackDown had these sort of blue referee shirts, and when ECW came along, they had these sort of black referee shirts. And again, just small things like that, having exclusive referees for each brand or having exclusive referee shirts just makes everything feel different. When the referees are the same, again, that's when the shows start to blur into one, and they start just to become the same. And I don't think that's the way to go. Just that's why it is. It's little things. It's just completely little things like that that really make things feel different and make you feel like you're not watching just a typical WWE show. You're watching a SmackDown. You're watching a Raw. You're watching an NXT or something like that. Why not? Why can't they go back to obviously in boxing, they have the traditional sort of long sleeve blue shirts with the bow tie. I'm not saying they have to wear a bow tie, but those long sleeve shirts, why can't they do that? They used to back in the day. I remember TNA used to do a cool thing when they had the Slammiversary pay-per-views. Originally, they would have referees in the long sleeve blue boxing referee shirts. Just things like that, makes things feel different. To see what they're doing now is obviously they picked it up for sort of 5-10 minutes, did the spots that got Angle and Benoit out of the match, and they've got to bring the crowd back down again now before they go to the finish. Another thing I wanted to touch on as well is that you can see it there. This is what I used to really enjoy about Madison Square Garden. Obviously, it was not just the New York City crowd and the hot crowd, the fun crowd, and the cool arena roof that they have. But also, I used to really like Madison Square Garden. Is that small entrance that you can see there? It was opposite the hard cam. Just this really small, compact, confined entranceway and they had sort of mechanical doors that open. The walk to the ring is like 5-10 seconds at most. But for me, some people would criticise it, saying it made the production feel small, and the entrances, you couldn't have those grand entrances, which to me is nonsense. I mean, you think of John Cena's surprise entrance at the Royal Rumble in 2008. That small Madison Square Garden entrance just made it feel different, didn't it? and it made these MSG shows just feel a little bit more special. Not only did you have the hot crowd, the big crowd, but you had the small entranceway, you had the sort of folding doors. It was fun. And they can still do the grand entrances. You think of the Undertaker's entrance on Raw in was it November 2009, prior to a Survivor Series, ironically enough. They still had the Druids, and they still had this, the smoke around the ring. So it's still possible to do the grand WWE entrance if you really, really crave that. But yeah, I used to really enjoy that Madison Square Garden entrance. Oh, I love this finish as well. Lasso from El Paso. Didn't used to see it that often from Eddie Guerrero, but people forget that he had that submission side to him. Taps out, and Los Guerreros win the match, which is interesting because it's a real ballsy move at the time to have those two go over. Because you look at Chris Benoit and Kurt Angle in this match; they're probably the most established stars, I would probably say, in this match in terms of their credentials. So them not winning it is, it's understandable. You probably want to split them up and go to singles, which is what they did. But you would think, okay, then they're not going to put the titles on Los Guerreros. Los Guerreros, if anything, might be the first people to get eliminated. But having Los Guerreros win there, actually, it really does help because it establishes their close to main event, penultimate match to the main event at Survivor Series, Big Four event, Madison Square Garden, bang, big team established. It really, really works there. As we see, Christopher Nowinski just about to come out now. I always find it really strange that whenever Chris Jericho refers to Chris Nowinski, he always calls him Chris Harvard. At any point, was he called Chris Harvard in WWE? I don't think he was. Obviously, his whole character was that he was from Harvard University and that sort of thing. But at any point, does anyone know if he was ever called Chris Harvard? To me, that always just seems really bizarre. I never had heard of him as called Chris Harvard or anything like that. It was just a bit strange for me. Amazing to think that he was obviously once WWE superstar, and now the great work he does as a part of the Sports Institute, looking at CTE and concussions in WWE, or just in professional sports, excuse me, not just WWE, but for the great work he's done for WWE with the concussion protocol and stuff like that. Whenever you think about concussions nowadays, it's crazy to think of what they used to do back in the day, isn't it? I mean, you look at hitting themselves with chair shots on the head, and they should do that every night. They used to not just be like a TV thing. They used to do chair shots to the head, spots outside on the floor, and house shows that were drawing maybe 1,000 people. It just doesn't. Not only isn't it worth it for the long-term health benefits, it's crazy to think that they did that. But fair credit to him, the amount of work he's done for professional sports and things like the WWE and everything for concussion protocol. It's fair play, and it will be life saving. And it's quality of life, isn't it? You can't substitute out your brain. This isn't something that grows back or gets better. So the amount of work he's done and put into it is really is fantastic. Now the currently cutting a promo in the ring. I don't want to spoil it for you that are watching it along with us. But this is all leading to a certain someone's debut, which is interesting. And out comes Matt Hardy version 1. I used to love those Matt facts. So this one, it says Matt keeps the room temperature at a toasty 75 degrees. Those Matt facts were so fun, weren't they? There'd be ones like Matt doesn't like ketchup and all that sort of stuff. There you go. Matt only drinks low-fat chocolate milk. Just quality stuff. I mean, you think about Matt Hardy, is there anyone... He's on that list for me of people that are just so creative in terms of professional wrestling. And you got to think, when he was... when he left the WWE in 2010 and he, was doing bits of Ring of Honor and then went to Impact. I mean, everyone just assumed, Matt Hardy's finished. Matt Hardy's done. And then when he reinvented that when he made that broken Matt character, I mean, it's easy to look at it now and just go, oh, it's genius, it's amazing. But back at the time, he was getting criticised and slandered. It was stupid, it was dumb. And I'll be the first to admit, when I first watched some of the Broken Matt stuff, I thought I didn't get it. I did not get it at all. I watched the, whatever it was, Final Deletion, the first one, and was like, this is mad. But then you watch it again, and then next thing you know, you're quoting it to your friends, or you're just saying it to people that don't even understand. Or you're saying ever, or delete. It's great. It's great, and it's the whole woken Matt Hardy element in WWE for me didn't work. I wouldn't say because the ship had sailed. I don't think the ship had sailed at all. I would think that you just, like anything with WWE, it's overbooked, it's overproduced. They couldn't let Matt be Matt. I do think he will end up in AEW. I really do. I think his contract expires just after WrestleMania. There isn't much time been put on there because I don't think he's been necessarily injured. He's just been off TV. I know he was working as a producer at certain points for WWE, but I think he thinks, and I do think as well, that he's got more left in the tank. So I think he will end up in AEW. He'll be able to do the broken Matt character. He did it in Impact and he did it in WWE. So he had it before WWE. WWE doesn't own that. I believe Matt owns the broken element of the character, not maybe woken, but I don't think he'll want to do woken. So I think he will end up in AEW as a talent and then eventually as a coach. With his brother Jeff, he has a lot added on to his contract because of his injuries. Whether or not he stays with WWE, I don't know. That's a strange one. The way to keep Matt on board, I would think, would be to offer more WWE Network stuff. They did the Hardy Halloween stuff, and you could easily do, a broken Matt sitcom or whatever, and that would work. And I think he'd be really creative. They've given it to Edge and Christian with the Edge and Christian show. You could do the same thing for Matt Hardy. And here you go, the debut. You see the debut of Scott Steiner here. I mean, Scott Steiner at this point is over. I mean, you think today he's almost become, not a joke seems harsh, doesn't it? But he at this time he was a talent, and you see here the crowd's into him. He's an absolute freak. I don't want to slander him at all here, but I think he, like Hulk Hogan would say, I think he's been taking a lot of his vitamins. He's been saying a lot of prayers. If you look at the size of him there, good lord. A genetic freak, yeah, absolutely. But the best thing for me with Scott Steiner, and I think people would agree, is that give Scott Steiner a live microphone. Just hearing him talk is absolutely hilarious. His whole point, the whole point of why people were into him is his promos. Not because they were good, just because they were crazy, and just seeing him go crazy is awesome. But you look at it, the crowd loves it. Crowd are into him. I'm not sure if they leave in the part where he shouts, "Give me an effing mic." And his suplexes are awesome, I'll give him that. But you can tell just by the way that he's moving around the ring, even here. I believe he had drop foot, a condition called drop foot, and you can see by the way that he moves his feet, his balance isn't necessarily all there. But the crowd are loving it. Look, I mean, this is 17,000 people shouting Scott Steiner. They love it. There goes Chris Nowinski. But yeah, you can tell by his movement here that even that drop foot condition and his sort of balance isn't there. But I mean, he's over. He's over. it didn't work out, obviously, for him in WWE. He has the feud with Triple H starting in January, and has the horrific match at Royal Rumble and No Way Out, and sort of falls off the edge of the world after that, really, because you just don't hear anything from him. Get ready for a holler if you hear me. That's a cool catchphrase, isn't it? Holler if you hear me. I enjoyed that. Like with many things in WWE, the best part of Scott Steiner's run in WWE was his debut, unfortunately. But it's a heck of a debut. Survivor Series, Madison Square Garden. Heck of a crowd response. Crowd loves it. Because you think like I said, he has the World Championship push, or in the World Championship picture. And you think, okay, he's going to be a big star. The matches were the shits. They don't work out. And then after that, he does a load of weird stuff with Test and Stacy Keibler, and eventually becomes a tag team partner with Test. And I don't even think he appears at a WrestleMania, does he? He's not on the card at WrestleMania 20. I don't think he's on the card for WrestleMania 19, which is crazy. We see the Elimination Chamber being lowered for the first time. Man, like I touched on it earlier, but I really miss that structure, that version of the Elimination Chamber structure. It really is. It's different. It was brutal. Like I said, that is a brutal structure. And we really didn't know what to expect going into this match. Really, we didn't know what it would really look like. We didn't know the rules. And Terry's back there with Shawn Michaels there. That has to be one of the worst Shawn Michaels haircuts ever, doesn't it? I mean, it's an awful haircut. I remember in Chris Jericho's. Well, here we have it. Cuts in. I don't know about you, but I've forgotten about this. We can see here a young Randy Orton had some segments that was hyping his return called RNN, a play on CNN. Man, Randy Orton looks young there, doesn't he? What an odd segment this is. Be interesting to see if that email address still works. getwellrandy@wwe.com. Send an email there. Our subscribers. Send your well wishes. But yes, Elimination Chamber match coming up next. As I was saying, I don't think anyone really knew what to expect going into this match. You know, what it would look like, the rules. That's not a bad thing though. Like I said, first time overs are good. WWE loves their first time overs. But you know, the intrigue was there. You only had Eric Bischoff hyping it up. You had these sort of graphics that were being made, but you didn't really know what it was. In storyline, this was actually a response to SmackDown's Hell in a Cell match at No Mercy in the previous month with Brock Lesnar facing The Undertaker. Obviously, we touched on it earlier, but that was just a phenomenal match. Whereas on the Raw side of things, at that event, No Mercy in 2002, you had the Raw's main event was Triple H defeating Kane to retain the World Heavyweight Championship and retire the Intercontinental Championship, and that was part of the infamous Katie Vick angle, which we'll leave out there because, you know, just the less said about that, the better. We see a promo package with the Saliva Always theme. See, I love promo packages like this. You know, you use the theme for the pay-per-view event with a promo highlight in the main event. They don't do this all the time, but when they do, it's awesome. It's just peak Ruthless Aggression era pay-per-view promo package. It's awesome. I think if you go on like YouTube now and you just type in Ruthless Aggression or best WWE pay-per-view packages, you see some absolute stellar ones, and this is one of them. This is a great promo package. I will give you the opportunity just to let it all in now. Shawn Michaels in a wheelchair. Yeah, this really is a great promo package. Obviously, they're highlighting Shawn Michaels here. This is actually Shawn Michaels' only his second match back since 1998. Obviously, he had his return match in August at SummerSlam. And I find it really funny when you hear the likes of Bruce Pritchard and JR say, "Oh, we didn't know what we had, and we didn't know if Shawn could still go. Shawn didn't know if he could still go, etc., etc." And obviously, that's understandable. He'd been out the ring for 4 years. Yet he goes on to wrestle for like close to 8 years, which is only 2 years short of his original second WWF run at the time, from 1988 to 1998. So it's just crazy to think, them saying at the time, "Oh yeah, we didn't know what we had with Shawn. We didn't know if he was going to be back. We didn't know if he was going to do this. We didn't know if he was going to do that." And yeah, he's you'll see in this match, he's the same, if not better, and he has a great run. Obviously, the schedule wasn't nearly as fierce as he worked previously. As he worked, I think it was only like TVs majority of the time and certain live dates and tours. Like he would work, the European tour most of the time, I think. But he wasn't, full time by any means. But like I said, it's just interesting because you hear all the stories that they didn't know if Shawn could do it, and not only could Shawn do it, but he did it for like 8 years before he retired. Backstage promo with Triple H now. Triple H at this point as well is absolutely jacked. I think he was another one that was, taking his vitamins, saying his prayers. Jonathan Coachman there as well, as a backstage interviewer. Again, another one. You look at him and they're not. Nowadays, if you're a backstage interviewer, you're in a suit and tie. They look professional, whereas here, it's just polo shirt. And to be fair, I am glad that they changed the look of the announcers and the professionalism in the announcers, because it just does add that professional edge. You wouldn't, in any other sport, you don't have someone in like a polo shirt announcing, having an interview with someone. They should be in a suit and tie. It looks professional, looks legitimate, like a sporting event should look like. You'd have it in boxing, you would have it in UFC, you would have it in anything like that. So it works. Here comes Eric Bischoff. He's back. Wasn't back for much longer recently. That whole, Eric Bischoff, I wouldn't say controversial. I suppose it is controversial. His recent run, if you can call it that, with WWE. It didn't. When the news came through that he was no longer with the company, it didn't surprise me. Put it that way, because it was coming. You could feel it. You could feel that it was coming. In the stories that were coming out prior to his release, you kept hearing these things every couple of weeks saying, "Oh, Bischoff hasn't got started in creative yet. Oh, Bischoff hasn't really done much yet. Bischoff is getting familiar," all that sort of stuff. But that was happening for a couple of months. You get it the first month or so when you hear the story of Bischoff is acclimating. He's just moved here to Connecticut. He's familiarising himself with the product, etc., etc. You go, okay, fair enough. But when it's like 2 or 3 months in, and you still hear, "Oh, Bischoff isn't really doing much creative," or "Bischoff isn't really getting that much involved with the storylines of the show and all this sort of stuff," then you start going, okay, what is he doing? And then when he does get released, like I said, it makes sense, because you feel it coming. And that was the case, I think, with Bischoff. And people will have their criticism whether or not he should have actually been involved in the first place, which I think it's a legitimate argument. I would say. He had the WCW run. That's what everyone talks about, the 83 weeks run. But it's true when people say, what has he done after that? And quite frankly, not a lot. He did have a sort of similar run in TNA. He was behind the Aces and Eights idea, which was a good idea, but in execution it didn't work. And TNA, I'm not part of the people that would say that TNA was run into the ground by Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, because I don't think they were. I think TNA was run into the ground by Dixie Carter and Vince Russo. But again, was he maybe the most qualified person for the job, for the Fox gig? Probably not. Is Bruce Pritchard the most qualified person for the Fox gig? So fast, I wouldn't say so. I think that, like a lot of people have said, it's just another example. Vince McMahon will always run creative for WWE, end of, into his dying breath. And I think that's just the case. Bruce gets obviously along with Vince better because he knows his history. So maybe that whole arrangement is just easier to have Bruce there. I think it's funny when people, when the original announcement was made about the XFL, which starts in February next year. I think it's funny that when that was announced, Vince McMahon had the, I'm going to be fully involved in the XFL and not as much in the WWE, which I think, as everyone will agree, is absolute bull. You know what? Because it's just not gonna. It just doesn't work like that, really, does it? So I think, that's just going to be the case. I think we see at the moment. We see Chris Jericho come into the ring. It's always fascinating, isn't it, seeing Chris Jericho in this setting, knowing what he's currently doing with AEW. Really fascinating. Obviously, the work he's doing with AEW now, I would argue, is some of the best work of his career. Probably personally, my favourite iteration of the Jericho character is the 2008, 2009, 2010 sort of Chris Jericho with the suits and the long names and all that sort of stuff. I think it's great. I love that version of Chris Jericho. But yeah, it's just seeing him in this match and knowing that 17 years later he's still going to be on the top of his game as a world champion in AEW and really carrying that company, let's be honest, on his shoulders at the moment. I think most people would agree, saying that you look forward to the Jericho segment on Dynamite each week, and that's why the majority of the time so far, Chris Jericho's segment is at the top of the hour, because they know that Jericho is going to draw the rating. So yeah, it's just fascinating to see him in this match so long ago, and knowing that he has so much more left in the tank, and not necessarily with WWE. Being sung to the ring by Saliva, singing King of My World. I put over Saliva quite heavy earlier on in this video, but I will say nothing will replace the original Chris Jericho theme tune, and I'm glad they didn't stick to it, because that original Chris Jericho song is WWE Chris Jericho. It fits him perfectly. There was no need to change it. Sometimes WWE superstars do need the change of theme tune, but definitely Chris Jericho didn't need it. Booker T's another one. So you see him coming to the ring now with his classic Booker T theme. I remember I think it's around WrestleMania 20, they changed his theme tune, which is no need. Like, Booker T's had the same entrance theme since like WCW. So yeah, no need to change it at all, and I'm glad they reverted back as well. A lot of the time when WWE changes the ring music, sometimes they don't change it back, but for Jericho and for Booker T they did, and it was definitely smart. Booker T, also the host of WWE Backstage at the moment. This coming Tuesday, we will see CM Punk's official WWE debut on WWE Backstage, not WWE debut, but his Backstage debut, I should say. We will be providing some live commentary through that on on our Twitter platform at 365Wrestle, so make sure you follow us to get all the best of that. I'm interested to see what CM Punk does this week on WWE Backstage. I think it's needed. Obviously, they haven't been drawing the best ratings on that program. By all accounts, the deal got put together very, very recently. Obviously, he had the screen tests with WWE Backstage and Renee Young and Fox Sports over the summer. But the stories that have come out recently have suggested that the actual deal for him to be an analyst on WWE Backstage was only done within the last couple of weeks, and no wonder. You know, they need that name to draw ratings. This will be the sign of how much CM Punk is truly worth in terms of a draw in 2019. Obviously, loads of people some people have criticised it, saying, "Oh, we come back for a small show and blah blah blah." CM Punk was never going to jump straight back in the deep end of the pool. He was never going to appear on a Raw or do this and do that. That was never ever going to happen. This is the same precedent as the Goldberg return. This is the same precedent as the Ultimate Warrior return, in that they've signed with an intermediary. So, you know, the Ultimate Warrior and Goldberg signed, and Sting actually signed with 2K, and that opens the door to WWE thing. The Ultimate Warrior and Goldberg one is similar because they had nuclear heat with WWE, and they would have never ever just straight away signed a deal like that with WWE. But once the door was opened by 2K and they were more receptive to getting back involved in WWE, that's when WWE got involved and they signed the deal, and they both made their returns to the company. So I think it's going to be a similar scenario. Will we see CM Punk back in a WWE ring? Excuse me. I think so. I think it's likely. I think it's more likely than ever. Will it be really soon? I doubt it. I do doubt it. I know he's obviously from Chicago, and Survivor Series this year and NXT TakeOver that whole weekend is in Chicago. Will he appear at it? I wouldn't be shocked if he doesn't. It, to me, would seem slightly too soon, since his deal is exclusively with Fox. But I think we will see him in a WWE ring again eventually, in the same way that we saw Goldberg and the Ultimate Warrior. You got to remember, when Goldberg and the Ultimate Warrior had their 2K deals, that was like the year prior or something like that. It took a while for that ball to get rolling. So I do think he will eventually return to WWE and on WWE ring. I would have thought it would only be for a select matches or select match. So it'll be interesting, you know. And going back to my original point, I'll be watching on Tuesday. We'll be watching, and it'll be interesting to see what he says. It's interesting to see what his opinion on the current WWE product is. He openly says that he doesn't watch it, but now he has to. That's his job. Because how can you analyze a product that you don't watch? So it'll be interesting to see what his opinions are. It'll be interesting to see what his opinion is on things like that King Corbin segment on Friday with the dog suit. It'll be interesting to see what his opinion is on The Fiend and Paul Heyman running Raw and the Women's Evolution. Things that he hasn't really spoken about because he's been very outspoken that he doesn't watch wrestling and he doesn't want to talk about wrestling. Now he's getting paid to talk about wrestling for a living. Obviously that has to change. And I think the more familiar he becomes with the product, again, that will give him the bug to maybe get involved a little bit more. So, like I said, I think a return to the ring is almost at this point inevitable. Will it be really soon? I doubt it. You see Triple H make his entrance with Ric Flair. I love the Triple H entrance. We're just seeing Ric Flair in the background there. Now, this is at a time where, obviously, Triple H was awarded the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, just given to him, because that was peak Triple H power pool at this period of time, wasn't it? I mean, this is, peak Triple H period of time where lots of the stories really started to come out about, you know, his power behind the scenes. Obviously, he was with Stephanie, or had been with Stephanie for quite a period of time at this point, but now was this type of times that you would hear the disgruntled performers not being happy with his influence and his involvement with the company in terms of creative and storylines. I believe he started sitting in on production meetings around like 2000 or 2001. You hear the story about when Russo left WWE and sort of left them high and dry, that he actually went to Vince McMahon, and Bruce Pritchard, saying, any help you need on the creative side of things, I'm here to help. I'll do what I can. And that would have been what, 99, 2000, some period of time around there. So he'd long been sitting in production meetings at this point. So 2 years at this point. So, and obviously him being going out with Stephanie McMahon at the time, and eventually would marry her like a year later, I think, at this point. So the stories about his influence were really starting to come out at this point. You see Triple H and RVD starting the match. And this was it. That door. It always surprised me with that door, the way they locked it. It's not really the most secure lock, isn't it? I think we saw on a couple of occasions it actually opened by accident. It was 2012. It had been 2012. I think it was the CM Punk Elimination Chamber when they just sort of fell out because that lock isn't the most secure lock. This isn't like a Hell in a Cell lock where they would actually padlock the door. RVD and Triple H starting off. I used to think that the chemistry that RVD and Triple H had wasn't actually that bad at all. There was a match on Monday Night Raw. I think it must have been prior to this. It was when Triple H had just been awarded the World Heavyweight Championship. This would have been, I believe, around September time. Because I think they had a match at Unforgiven in 2002, RVD and Triple H for the world title. It was the one where Ric Flair sort of came out as Triple H's mentor, helped Triple H win the match. But they had a match on Raw where it looked like RVD, or they did this sort of Chris Jericho Triple H move where it had appeared that RVD had won the world title, and then they came out and sort of reversed the decision. But it was a litmus test that, I mean, RVD, I think they pulled the trigger slightly too late on RVD when he became the WWE champion in 2006, and the ECW champion at the same time to launch that brand. Obviously, we know that didn't work. I mean, that's the point with the door. You just see it there. That door is not secure at all. So RVD, like as I was saying, they pulled the trigger, I think, slightly too late on him, but he was always over. When he came in WWE in 2001, he was always super, super over. I remember as a kid, I used to love RVD because of moves like that. They used to love the fun, different RVD moves, and it was great. Love RVD. I mean, that's an early Blade job, to be fair, isn't it? I mean, we're, like 2-3 minutes into this match? Triple H's already got colour. I mean, you'll see as this match goes on. Triple H knew how to properly get colour several times. I can think of a few matches where he has gone slightly overboard on the Blade job. I think there was a triple threat match after WrestleMania 22. Triple H versus John Cena versus Edge, and Triple H in that match, oh my god, he gets some colour and a half. He gets so much red on him. And this is another one. In this match, he does the exact same. See Jericho pulling RVD into the pod there. It's such a Jericho spot, isn't it? A creative, fun, different spot. Obviously, Chris Jericho losing his undefeated start in AEW this past week, getting pinned by Scorpio Sky. I'll give you my sort of quick opinion on that one. People are saying that maybe he should have it should have meant more, and he should have left it for someone else to pin him, and all that sort of thing. For me, I felt that I do partially agree on that. They might have been partially wasted. It was a tag team match. It's not as if someone pinned him in the singles match. So he still has that. Obviously, it's a blotch on his overall record. But was Scorpio Sky maybe the right person to get the win? Maybe not. I do think Scorpio Sky is a future single star though for AEW. It's a rub that he probably does need. That whole main event match felt very rushed to me anyway. I think that's something that they need to work on. Not just them though, WWE. I think WWE had been producing, or their main focus had been producing a 3-hour Raw for so long that the first few SmackDowns you saw on Fox, it was almost like they'd forgotten how to do it, even though they'd been producing a 2-hour weekly TV show on USA with SmackDown for so long. But those first few shows on Fox were so rushed. Like the main event segment with Lesnar and Kingston and Cain Velasquez was so rushed. So it's not just a problem that's exclusive to AEW, but AEW has been certainly struggling to make up time in a couple of those Dynamites as well. I don't know what segments have been going over, what has and hasn't been, but several times it gets to the main event and you look at your clock and it's 5:02 and you're going, well, there's only 5 minutes left of the show and they've got a whole match to fit in, and that was the problem this past week with the tag match. And I think part of the problem with that, obviously, one is the keeping of time. People go over their segments and there needs to be punishment for that. But also, when the competitors realise they have 5 minutes left, they need to adjust. And I think sometimes part of the problem is sometimes there's 5 minutes left and people will go, oh yeah, but we're still going to get our stuff in. Which, unfortunately, that's not the case. I know you can't tell a story in 5 minutes. You can't tell a great story in 10 minutes. But, the time is the time. The time constraints are what you have to work in, and you have to adapt. And I think sometimes maybe the naivety of some of the people that haven't really worked on these major TV shows before, or wrestled in these major TV shows before, when they have to adjust their main event or adjust their time, that's what they need to do. So that suffered. And then going back to the Jericho losing his undefeated streak, should have gone to someone else? Probably. I do agree that maybe it wasn't the right person to lose it to, but we'll see. We'll see where they go with it. Should Scorpio Sky be in consideration for a world title shot? In storyline, probably. I mean, he beat the world champion, regardless of how you look at it. Will he actually get a world title shot? Probably not, unless they do it on the show just to try and grab a rating. But I'm not sure a Scorpio Sky Chris Jericho match does grab a rating. Maybe because it's a world championship, they think it will. I mean, like I said, we'll wait to see. At the moment, he's a tag team champion. I would ideally move that title away from him and move that to Daniels and Kazarian, and then have Scorpio Sky go after the singles championship, whether that's a TV title or a world title. I think Scorpio Sky is. You mean look at his in-ring work? It's very, very good. His mic works okay, so we'll see. Chris Jericho joined the match a couple of minutes ago. The thing I did notice about Chris Jericho this past week on Dynamite is obviously now he's 49 years old. He became 49 a couple of weeks ago, last weekend, I believe. And he can still hit a lionsault. I mean, this is nearly a 50-year-old man can nearly hit a springboard moonsault. I mean, that's a credit to the talent that he is. See Chris Jericho giving Shawn Michaels the crotch chop there. These two would go on, obviously, at WrestleMania 19 to face off against each other at one of the best WrestleMania matches of all time, in my opinion. Chris Jericho likes to say that match stole WrestleMania. I would disagree, because I don't think it did. I would say that the match that truly stole WrestleMania 19 was actually Hulk Hogan versus Mr. McMahon. Feel free to disagree, of course, but that match is crazy. We put something on our Twitter account yesterday as part of our Who Remembers series. That shot of Mr. McMahon going under the apron, getting the lead pipe,
standing up and peering like evilly over the ring apron is just, I mean, it really is. It's an icon for me. It's an iconic shot. It's one of the best ever shots, I think, in the history of WWE. Big sentence, but it really is, because it just talk about something that encapsulates the character in one moment, and that's really it for me. It's an iconic shot. It's a bloody crazed Vince McMahon, and I mean, it's awesome. I mean, that's quality camera work, and like I said, I think that was the match that stole WrestleMania that year, in my opinion, and that's a loaded show. Obviously, we'll probably do a watch along at some point, maybe around the time of WrestleMania next year. But WrestleMania 19, a lot of people will say WrestleMania 17 is the greatest WrestleMania of all time, and you may probably right because of obviously some of the matches on that show. But in terms of match quality, WrestleMania 19, try and beat that. I mean, you've got Lesnar versus Kurt Angle, you've got the McMahon Hogan street fight, you've got Jericho versus Shawn Michaels, you've got The Rock versus Stone Cold, and Stone Cold's last ever match. You know, that's a quality card right there. Obviously, you have the Triple H Booker T disaster to come. As we see Booker T, there you go, entering the match, almost like I timed it. Still crazy that Triple H is colour like 2 minutes into the match. That's what I mean. Like, this is what I liked about this version of the Elimination Chamber. Just a simple bump to the outside really, really gave some injury. Like, you felt it immediately. Like, there was no give to that ringside area, which was great. T and RVD facing off here. Some of Booker T's spin kicks as well were positively brutal. I mean, they would literally knock your head off. You can see Shawn Michaels in the background there. I remember reading, it's one of Chris Jericho's book. It must be the sequel. It's not A Lion's Tale, it's the sequel, whatever that is. And he talks about this match quite in depth. And he talks about Shawn Michaels' terrible haircut, which is totally true. The haircut is absolutely awful. And describes his Shawn Michaels' ring attire as having shit brown tights. And you look at them, and it's so true. You think of some of the iconic ring attire that Shawn Michaels has worn throughout his career, some of the most amazing stuff. And you look at that haircut and that tights, you just think, who gave you the advice at that point to wear that? Because that is horrendous, really is. What is cool about this is when you see the people on the outside, like Chris Jericho there and RVD, is that they're actually selling when they're on the outside. Not sometimes as well, and this I've noticed quite a lot recently with some of the AEW matches when they've had battle royals or multi-person matches. A big bugbear for me is when you see someone they're not selling. All they're doing is they're just waiting for the next spot, and you can see them like peering in, or you can see them peering, waiting for the next spot. They're not selling. Van Dam's about to cut. Now this is a spot which is actually a really brutal spot. You'll see when he hits a frog splash, bang. His knee goes right into the throat of Triple H, and I think he actually got like a crushed larynx or something like that. Legitimately, Triple H got injured. I think he was in hospital for like 24, 48 hours after it. Bang, his knee goes right into Triple H's throat. And said like he can at this point Triple H can barely breathe, and like you see him grabbing his throat. Yeah, he can barely breathe, and I think at one point like they said that it was actually really really bad. Like it could have been serious. Like he could have died. See Van Dam's out now. You'll see him holding his throat like he can barely breathe. I mean, and this is into the match. We have at least like 30 minutes left of the event. He's like I said, he's still like 30 minutes left of the event. So Triple H, say what you want about him. People could, especially at this point of time, you could say people saying that he was a manipulator. He was politicking his way to the top. He married into the company. He married his way into the top spot in the company. This is still a guy who's, he bladed like 2 minutes into this match, so he's bleeding. He has a crushed larynx and still has 30 minutes left to go. Not only 30 minutes left to go, but 30 minutes left to go with a fresh Shawn Michaels who's going to come in full of piss and vinegar and energy. It says quite a lot about him as a performer and an athlete. Twice he's pulled or torn quads in both of his legs and still finished the match and been standing on his leg. So, you can say what you want about him. Say what you want about his character and his politics, which is completely fair given his track record. But I mean, he's a warrior, no doubt. And what he's done with NXT is really just phenomenal, isn't it? As we see, I believe Kane to be the last person in. Next person in, excuse me. There you go. I think at this point, it was when there's two people left, it's obvious that Shawn Michaels is going to be the last person left in. I think that goes back to what we were saying earlier about Bruce Pritchard and JR not really knowing what they had. I mean, if you're worried about, can Shawn Michaels still go? What condition is his back? The ideal scenario is not for him to go into an Elimination Chamber, which when you see how it's made, is positively brutal. It has no give at all. I wouldn't recommend someone who's had 4 years off because they've had a back injury be taking back drops and bumps onto that steel grating. Michaels probably did because he's a madman. But it's probably not the best scenario for him to be put in at all. Interesting that the crowd, I would say, throughout this match, Chris Jericho goes through the bulletproof glass. So bulletproof that pretty much in every single match it breaks. Apparently, Chris Jericho is faster than a speeding bullet. One of the most brutal ones for me is when Chris Jericho obviously got speared by by Goldberg. Wasn't necessarily, I mean, that's the best break I think of him that I've seen, but the one where he gets speared through Goldberg, he doesn't actually get speared through initially. The glass doesn't, or the plastic doesn't break, and Goldberg has to really push him through, and the glass literally lands right on his head. I remember thinking that he was just going to get completely sliced open. Kane just about hit the chokeslam on Booker T. God, it might have been one of the worst chokeslams ever. That's up there with Hulk Hogan. And there we go. Lion Salt can still do it today at 49 years old. That should be Booker T done. And there you go. Every time you see those bumps on the outside, man, they are brutal. Kane in that 2002 attire, obviously he would lose his mask. I think he has about a year left in that mask, doesn't it? And he loses it around September time or something like that. Ironically, in this very building in Madison Square Garden, he loses a match to Triple H, doesn't he, and takes the mask off. What was your opinion on this Kane attire? For me, it was definitely a removal from his initial attire, especially the mask. This was the first mask to really have the mouth sort of cut out so he could really cut a promo. Whereas back in the day, obviously, he had that mask that was how he could breathe in it. beyond me. You would have that sort of tiny sort of slit where you would have to sort of breathe through. Working like this with actual ability to breathe must have been amazing. Shawn Michaels can't have long left in his pod. Do you think how is Triple H still upright and breathing at this point? Especially when you know that in reality his throat is completely crushed. And it's interesting to think about, really. Would nowadays in WWE, if that move had happened to you and you had crushed your larynx or were having difficulty breathing, I would think, or you'd like to think, that the referee would just call the match at this point, or just eliminate you. I suppose it's more difficult when you're the champion and the finish, and you're so crucial to the finish of the match. The whole point of Shawn, overcoming his partner is needed. But it's. I think nowadays, referee, if that would happen, the referee would just call it. They would say either lay in the corner or, okay, we'll eliminate you now. But here comes HBK in those horrible tights. Man, you think again, you can't really state enough, can you, that, like, now, looking back on it now and how much of a career Shawn Michaels would have post his injury, but at the time, this must have just been, or this was, like, man, Shawn Michaels back in a ring again. It wasn't a one and done thing. I'm trying to think of what the equivalent would be today. Equivalent today might be like a CM Punk. Might be like a CM Punk and coming back for one match, and you go, okay, that was great, and then suddenly he's booked for another big show. But is this going to be a regular thing? And I think this was the thought of Shawn Michaels at the time. Oof. That back, that bump is always brutal. That back roll up the turnbuckle. I think, in fairness to Triple H, now you have seen him sort of limit himself from the match because of his injury. Certainly wouldn't want him taking a chokeslam from Kane at this point, would you? Shawn Michaels did, though. Bang. I know he is. Oh, that must kill. He must be in so much pain. Third one, here we go, Jericho. Bang. Stuff like this is now the part that I don't understand. Like, why wouldn't you go for the pin at this point? This point lacks logic and psychology for me at this point. Going for the tombstone, I think. Bang. Do the sit-up, Kane. He does. Ah. The thing is, that's where the production meeting has to come prior. You know he's going to sit up there, and he's missed it. Nails that line, so 3/4 away across the ring. Kane's gone. 3 left. I think that's slightly overdone. The free finisher to keep the big guys strong, but it makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, you've had Kane in a world championship picture at this point, haven't you, for the last couple of months? Have him just go out for no reason doesn't really make much sense in terms of building him up. So that makes sense at that point. Ooh. Again, this is what I mean. Like, if you don't know, if you're saying, we don't know what Shawn Michaels has got, or we don't know what he's capable of at the moment, then you don't want him to taking backdrops onto this. That's what they're showing now. Bang. He doesn't really take all of it. He takes it in his hip, to be fair. But in later years, he would. So obviously, that back injury was just, was pretty healed up. I mean, you didn't hear him really talk about it in the latter years of his career. Actually, thinking about it, Shawn Michaels, the only thing you really heard from him, or the time off that he had, was because of his knees. Obviously, the infamous "I've lost my smile" injury was due to them saying he had to rebuild his knee. But I know in latter years of his WWE career, when he would have time off, he had quite a few knee surgeries, Shawn Michaels. He wouldn't wear the sort of skin tight tights that he used to. He would wear more baggy ones, and that was because he would have knee braces on because his knees were in quite bad shape. So I think that's really what plagued him in his latter career, not necessarily his back. So it would appear that maybe that back injury was, I don't know if it was ever completely healed. You never really heard him talk about it that much. Be interesting to hear what he had to say about that back injury in his latter years. It would appear nowadays doesn't give him any grief at all. He looks, nowadays he looks healthier than ever, doesn't he? He's in better shape now than he definitely was here. When they had the disaster of a match at Crown Jewel last year, he looked in great shape, even though he was desperate for that cowboy hat to stick to the top of his head. That was the most amazing thing with the Super Showdown match in Australia previously, when he was part of the Undertaker versus Triple H match, was that cowboy hat for the longest time stuck to the top of his head. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was just like a super tight cowboy hat. I don't know if he gummed it or glued it, or crazy glued it to his head, but it would not come off. And eventually it did, and his bald head was shown to the whole world. I just don't really understand at this point. Everyone knew Shawn Michaels was going bald. It'd been for years. You could tell how bad it was. Sometimes you got to bite the bullet, Shawn. Eventually he did, to be fair to him, so. Still amazing at this point that, Triple H is still walking and breathing. You can see that Earl Hebner is constantly checking on him, going, "You alive, pal?" That's probably straight from Vince McMahon. Is he alive, pal? There you go, Shawn Michaels got colour. So what's interesting as well at this point is that you got to remember that obviously Shawn Michaels was, when he left originally, or retired originally in 1998, it was really the start of the Attitude Era. It wasn't full into the Attitude Era, about, especially with things like getting colour. So at this point, it's quite, I hadn't seen Shawn Michaels get colour that often. I mean, I understand obviously the issues with blood nowadays. You about the illnesses and the diseases and the infections and stuff like that. But if blood definitely does serve a purpose, I think, in professional wrestling. I don't think people realise it enough, or people are scared of it enough. You look at things like the Cody Rhodes versus Dustin Rhodes match at Double or Nothing. Obviously, Dustin got too much, that's given, but it adds to the match. That shot of Dustin turning over the figure 4 leg lock and having the blood streaming down his face is similar to the Stone Cold Bret Hart shot, isn't it? Of the blood streaming down his face. It's storytelling. That's what it is. And I think nowadays, with WWE being PG and being scared of telling us of blood, it does help tell the story. Sometimes is it too much? Absolutely. Sometimes when people are doing it for no reason, it's stupid. But you have the match like the Dustin Rhodes match. It works. And the crowd popped for that, didn't they? I think when Roman Reigns got colour in that WrestleMania 34 match against Brock Lesnar, I don't know if that was actual colour or if that was one of those blood capsules, because his face was awful. I thought, it might have been hard way, mightn't it, from Brock Lesnar? He is the king of getting someone hard way, Brock Lesnar, with those elbows. Hurry up, Earl. God. Oh. Earl Hebner is the king of the near fall, isn't he? I love that. The best count that Earl Hebner does is the slow 1, 2, 3. That's a skill that not many referees have nowadays. Earl Hebner currently referee in AEW. Not their senior referee. Their senior main referee is Aubrey Edwards. Who does a absolutely fantastic job, doesn't she? I mean, she's really sort of appeared as a standout of the pack, and it's not a gimmick either. Some people at first would criticise. I remember hearing Jim Cornette say that a female couldn't referee a male match because what happens if she got hit? It just wouldn't happen in the UFC. Just in case, how's she going to pull anyone apart? Aubrey Edwards has the personality to pull anyone apart, and Chris Jericho, to his credit, has seriously got her over as a serious authority figure with her officiating. Whenever she's been pushed, she pushes back, or she gets in the face, she throws people out. Her expressions are fantastic. The only criticism I would have would be in the Full Gear match between Chris Jericho and Cody, when MJF was going to be throwing in the towel. You could see out the corner of her eye that she was looking. She kept looking for it, which I didn't think it wasn't necessarily. If you know that it's coming, you don't need to look for it. He'll throw it and you'll see it, Or when he does, you just listen to the crowd. So she didn't. For me, that kind of took me out of the moment a little bit. But I mean, she's a young referee. She's fantastic at what she does, and she's really been a standout in the AEW officiating. Jericho, I would watch out. I think something's coming for you. Got Triple H in the walls of Jericho, but I don't think for much longer. Pulls him in center of the ring. Bang. 3, and that's Jericho gone. It's down to 2. And now, you can hear the crowd rumbling because they know that, okay. But again, go back to Sean's hair. Look at that. I mean, there is bald patches there, and it's 2002. And he didn't cut his hair till, what, 2018? And now, it took a while for the crowd to get into this one, surprisingly, but now the crowd's hot because they know something's happening. Damn, double A spine buster. Is there a better spine buster than Arn Anderson? I don't think so, to be honest. And he can still do it now. That one he did on Sean Spears at All Out was awesome, and I love the little tuck and roll afterwards. Triple H does that one justice. Robert Roode does a good Arn Anderson style spine buster. Like I said, Triple H at this point, his throat is completely crushed. That's what I was saying earlier about the backdrop onto the steel grate, and that's what annoys me now, is that now in the current Elimination Chamber, that outside part is just matted. It's all matte like it would be on the outside of the ring if it was a normal match. And like I said, I understand it because this match does breed injuries, isn't it, really? But I guess that's the point. These sort of matches, they look brutal because they are. That's the whole point. Now, Shawn Michaels going for the pedigree on the outside. Bang. See you later, Shawn. Oh. Needs another one. Apparently, Shawn Michaels is tougher than a speeding bullet since he broke that glass. They should always do that. They do it before every single match. Oh, this is bulletproof plexiglass. So bulletproof that 2 people have gone through it at this point in the match. I mean, is there a match where someone doesn't go through it? And they're showing the replay again. At least it broke. I mean, that broke really well. Not as good as the Jericho one earlier, but it broke well. But like I said, the crowd, even though it took a while to get into it, but at the point the crowd is hot. The crowd is hot. And instead of New York crowd, that's the thing with Madison Square Garden. You're always going to have, if you book something right, you're always going to have moments just because of the history of the building. And I think that the difficult thing to do at this point is that when you're down to 2 at this point, when it's Triple H and Shawn Michaels, the crowd is probably leaning, going, probably Shawn Michaels is going to win it. But then when you're creating that element of doubt, which is what they're doing, because the element of doubt is there, you're going, well, their last 2, surely Shawn Michaels is going to win it. But then you go, oh, he hasn't been in the ring for a while. His back's bad. Why would they put the title on him? They've just put the title on Triple H. So, it does. At this point, it's all about creating the element of doubt, which is what they're doing. Triple H still got that colour. And to be fair, it's like I said, he got that RVD injury, must be 15, 20 minutes ago at this point. And he's still going. Man, you're over when you just hit an alright hand. It's a reaction. That's why, say what you want about people like Cena. That's how you could tell that Cena was over. How many bumps does Michaels want to take onto the steel grating on the outside? I think, Michaels, and fair play to Michaels, if you were worried or concerned about your well-being, you wouldn't have this match. What happened there? Ebner just trying to get through the ropes took a bump. I mean, I don't think I've seen that much before by Ebner. We'll have to put that on the Daily Fail. That's hilarious. And both men playing really well. The fact that they're spent. They probably are. I mean, Triple H can't actually breathe. I doubt at this point. I mean, I'm tired just watching this. Oh man, Triple H landed right on his head there as well. See, this is the criticism that some people would have at this point, is they would say, oh, maybe this final 2 element has gone on slightly too long. It's a bit slow. But I would disagree. I think that they're building to the finish at this point. They're not giving the crowd what they want straight away, which is the right thing to do. Bang. Elbow drop from the top. Again, this is a guy that, 6 months ago, when he was signed, him getting back in the ring was out of the question. And, 6, 7 months later, taking elbow drops off the top of the cage. He's taking back drops onto steel grating in his shit brown tights. There you go, the crowd's feeling it at this point. That's the great thing about the switching music, is that I can't think of many other people's finishes at this point that have the anticipation to the build-up that Sean's switching music has. Randy Orton has a great build-up for his finish, the RKO with the slapping of the mat. I mean, who else? I mean, Cena has a good one. I mean, these are older stars nowadays. I guess you could say Rollins with a stomp, but for me, it's not the same. Here we go. Get ready for the finish. Pedigree. Bang. Again, like I was saying before, this is the creating the element of doubt, isn't it? At this point, Triple H and Shawn Michaels know that they've got the crowd literally in the palm of their hands. I mean, how great is JR at calling it at this point as well? There'll be, there is the criticism that he's maybe past his prime. Here we go. Listen to the pop on kick out, and JR going crazy. Yeah, what I was saying before is that with Jim Ross, people can criticise that maybe he's not what he was, and he's I wouldn't say he's phoning it in. I would say he's trying his best. Is he what he was? Probably not. You got to remember that he hasn't called regular TV for a while. Here we go, and this is it. Backdrop out of the pedigree. Bang. And that's it. Crowd has gone nuts. And listen, JR, call that. That's unbelievable. What a finish. Crowd are going insane. And what a main event that was. I mean, that's what's great about these Elimination Chamber matches, is that they really do build to a crescendo. And out comes the confetti. I guess that was going to come out for any winner, right? If Kane won the match, he was going to get a load of confetti. Definitely. Or if Triple H won, he'd get a load of confetti. Do you believe in miracles? Again, it's just a great call, isn't it, from JR? I would like the idea that, that Triple H wins, gets a ton of heat, and then the confetti comes out. That would be awesome. But yeah, it's a great, and that is actually Shawn Michaels' final World Championship win in WWE, isn't it? Afterwards, he never held the world title. I think it was a thing on his part that he felt that the world champion, and to his credit, he's probably right. He felt that the world champion should always be present at every live event and every live show. Obviously, that's not the Brock Lesnar school of thinking, but I think he said after this, I can't do every live event. I can't do, every TV. I can't do every pay-per-view, and that's what the world champion should do. And it takes a big man to say that, to be honest. So, listen to JR's commentary at the moment. It is tremendous. It really is tremendous. A new sheriff in town. And that's the end of the show. So, just closing thoughts. Obviously, a tremendous show. Like I said, one of my favourite Survivor Series of all time. And I hope that you enjoyed our first video on the YouTube platform, this Watch Along Sunday. There will be more to come. Let us know what you think, what you thought of the show. What was your favourite moment from the show? Let us know in the comments below. Remember to like and make sure that you subscribe. Once we get to that 1,000 subscriber number, we can start doing our live streams, start doing instant reactions to Raw, NXT, AEW Dynamite, SmackDown, pay-per-view events, everything above. Thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you again soon.